Okay, we are live. Another edition of the Edlow Podcast. Subscribe, subscribe, subscribe. Should have opened this soda before I hit record. There it goes. That's gonna get caught up on the
Make
thing.
everybody thirsty.
Yeah, this is a 7 Up Zero Sugar Tropical, and
Aw,
yeah, it tastes a little bit like 7 Up and Death, but I bought a whole case of it, so I got to keep drinking it. So
well, there you go.
yes. So hello, Stephanie Lynn Reay. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Yeah, so we were just talking off air. It's been a long time that we've known each other. It's
It has been.
crazy how just like on an off chance we run into each other and in Utah 20 plus years ago and remain friends and life takes all sorts of crazy twists and turns and here we are. So,
Yep, thank goodness for social media, huh?
yeah, right, right. So but your story is really interesting. I'm glad we have you on because one of the things that we've kind of chatted about is you have kind of ventured into kind of becoming a kind of a what do you call it, like an influencer kind of for LDS singles, and you have been kind of branching into podcasting and speaking and all these different things and curious, like what got you into wanting to do all of that?
Well, first of all, so I've been a performer since I was small, and I used to joke about the fact that I love attention, which I suppose is true. But what I found actually is that what I really love is connecting with people, and I love the energy of other people. But I've wanted to do public speaking for quite a while, and all of the rest of it was really incidental and unintentional. What happened was, as I was going to mediation for my divorce, I decided to make it was actually a Marco Polo video that I sent to some girlfriends, and then I downloaded it and shared it on Facebook, and I asked for prayers going into mediation. And then at the end of the day, I did an update about how things had gone, and I received a lot of responses to people that could relate and had been going through similar things, and they appreciated what I shared. And from there, it literally was a matter of like spiritual promptings where I felt like God was saying, "Hey, listen, share this message." And it was just positivity, put positivity out there. I never had any aspirations. And I don't know about the word influencer. Like, really, I just sincerely really love people. And I care about Ma it's hard. It's hard to go through a divorce. It's hard to be single in, 40s, 50s, whatever, and, I see people struggling, and it matters to me. I wanna do something that helps, and so literally, it was just like I actually just shared a video that talked about how, what I feel my life is like right now is just that I take one step into the darkness, and God kind of illuminates things for me a little bit and says, "'Okay, here's your next step." So
Mm,
it started with this video, these ideas. I'll get an idea about this is something I need to share, and I keep a list in my phone. And then I had an impression that I needed to start a singles group on Facebook, and so I started that. And once I had that up and running, I felt like I recognized that as women reached out to me, there are a lot of women that are very wounded and they're going through difficult things, and they don't have a sense of community and they're not ready yet to jump into the singles activities and be around men. So I created a women's group where we can facilitate community there. And I reach out to these women, and I've met many of them. We've connected electronically, but many of us have actually met face to face. And then once I had that established, I had the craziest prompting that I needed to start a men's group. And I thought, that's kind of ridiculous. Like, why would men join a group that I'm moderating? But they have.
mm.
And
Curious, because I know you told me about this men's group and have asked me to help moderate, and I'm like, there's no chance that I have any interest in being
yeah, thanks for
involved.
your support, Josh. Thanks for that.
Hey, I support you. If you got spiritual promptings to start a men's group for these guys that you're friends with, fair enough. But
Mhm.
so how many guys are in the group?
So right now, I've started it like maybe 2 weeks ago. Right now, we're sitting at about just 100, and I'm
100
hoping.
guys in 2 weeks?
Yeah,
Holy cow, wait, okay, hold on, let me ask you, that is I was not expecting that.
that's
I
so
was I
funny.
well, because okay, so I have a friend who he does groups. He's a therapist, and he
Okay.
does groups, and he does, support groups for women and men, and the women's groups are so much bigger than the
Mm,
men's groups. Like his men's group, I mean, he's a therapist, right? So the group, it's different than probably what you're dealing with, but
yeah, yeah, for
his
sure.
like the people who are interested were like in the maybe 12 to 14 versus like, 40 or 50 women, and
Uh-huh.
I'm just like, "Holy cow." Are you seeing on a grander scale that same amount? Like, it are is I mean, I know you just started the men's group and the women's group probably started earlier, but do you see a great disparity in how many women wanna join the community versus how many men?
Uh, I actually don't. Numbers are about equivalent. And
Seriously.
not exactly I'm not exactly sure why that is. I know that I feel like my content is largely for women.
Mhm.
I mean, really, it's just for people that are in a similar situation for me, right?
Yeah.
I like learned something or I experienced something and I want to share it because it benefited me, and that's what I share. But according to the metrics, there are actually more men watching than women, and so that might be reflective of why that the groups are equivalent, and they're private groups. So
So let me ask you a question on that. When you're saying the metrics, are you talking about metrics like on the like reels you share, or you mean
yeah,
metric okay.
yeah, yeah.
So more
So
men
like
are
if
watching your reels than women.
Yeah. So if I go to Facebook and I look at the professional dashboard and it shows me who's watching what, it'll tell me like age range, gender, it'll even talk about location, what country they're
Mm.
from. So
Where are most of your people coming from?
most are from the United States. Occasionally I'll have some weird variance from that.
Hmm.
United States and then Nigeria.
Oh, yeah.
And
Nigerian princes trying to
there you go.
land a green card. Yeah. So,
Uh,
but that actually brings one of the points I wanted to ask is, I mean, you're a single woman, LDS
mm.
faith. Do you think and I don't know, I'm just curious, do you think that the reason why more men are watching than women is because they see you're a single woman and these are single men and they're interested in you as a single woman? Or do you think that are they messaging you and saying that your messages are resonating? Or is it more they're hitting you up and saying, "Hey, so, what are you up to this Friday night?" Right?
It's both. It's a lot
Okay.
of both.
Mhm.
So, like I can't be sure of motives. I absolutely feel like it does resonate with some people. And hopefully, because a lot of my messaging is about at this point, it wasn't initially, but it has kind of evolved, where I do talk about good men. And I have really fabulous men in my life. And I believe in good men, but I think that's a super important message for two reasons. Because I think it's easy for women with bad experiences to doubt that good men are available. And I think it's easy for men to feel like women doubt that there are good men available. And I think it's totally imperative that women believe they're going to find a good man and that men believe that we view them as valuable and important and that we need them. I think that's super important. So hopefully that's the message that's getting across.
Mm. And how do you let's say, like, with the men's group, how do you as a woman convey that message to them?
Some of it has to do with other things that I share, but, like, videos from other people or whatnot. But, a lot of it is literally just saying so. One of the early videos that I made about men was actually about my father and about what my father has meant in my life. And
Mm.
that because he is the kind of man that I can believe in and trust, I know that there are good men out there. And I've got six incredible brothers too. Like, my life is without question completely elevated because of the good men in my life. And I used to be of the mindset that, like, I'm fairly independent. I've done a lot of things. I was single until I was 32 as well. So by the time I got married, I was fairly well established. I owned my own home and things like that. I was very successful in business. And so you see a lot of stuff on social media about how there are men that don't like the idea of independent women, but
Mm.
being an independent woman is a matter of survival. Like, why would I want to be a dependent woman?
Mhm,
But
mhm,
in the process of that, I think I conveyed the sentiment that because of that, I didn't need a man. And when I came to understand more that men need purpose, and oftentimes in relation to women, that is that men need to be needed,
mm,
I changed my messaging.
mm,
And if I look at my life and what the benefits in my life are, especially right now since my divorce,
mhm,
it's hugely due to good men. Like
mm.
my brothers and my father and other men that will come over and help with various things, they totally make my life better and easier.
It's interesting that you bring that up, and I was thinking to myself, of course, I'm not like I don't pretend to speak for men in general and what they need because, everybody's different. I can only speak for myself, but I would say I don't know, at least for me, if I feel the need to be needed as much as I just want gratitude for the things that I do provide. Like when you say things like, and it's just foreign to me, like a guy wouldn't be interested in an independent woman. Uh, I don't understand why that would be. I mean, unless there's some insecurity within the man that a woman who would be independent would somehow leave them or something like that. Uh, I don't understand why anyone would be worried about an independent woman per se. I don't think it's that a man would wanna be I guess what I'm saying for me, the need isn't there as much as, "Hey, if I do provide something, just be grateful for it." Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
absolutely it does.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think there are a lot of philosophies out there, and I'm still in the learning curve when it comes to some of this stuff. But there's the manosphere, right? And the red pill, blue pill philosophies about masculinity and about alpha males and all of these other things. And the idea is that if women are conveying the sentiment that they don't need men,
Mhm.
it's off putting. And I think that's totally fair. I mean, we need each other, right? That's
True,
absolutely the goal.
true, but I mean, like, being needed is one thing, but being wanted is another. Like, you know what
There
I mean?
that's the argument. That's and
Yeah.
that was the side that I fell to before because I felt like if I want a man, that persists beyond whether or not I need him. But there is a huge population of men that want to be needed. They need to
Yeah,
be needed.
I guess, yeah, I mean, maybe I don't like I said, I don't know. Uh,
You're
I'm not
very and it might have to do with the fact that you're very needed. There are a lot of people that depend on you. So it
well,
might be that the idea of
maybe.
not being needed is foreign.
No, I don't know if it's that as so much as it's just, I think it would be like if like, being needed, it gives to me a connotation when you hear that. I mean, this is just the way my brain thinks is the person is there because they have to be, not because they
Mhm,
wanna be. Like, "I need you, that's why I'm there." Uh, and, and there's maybe there's a difference. Maybe I'm thinking of need wrong when we're talking about this. Like, need like, "Oh, I need you because I love you," or something is one thing, but need you
mhm,
because you need to provide for me or that I need you to that's a different thing, and maybe I'm thinking of it that way. I think it's just so much more valuable to, "Hey, I don't need like, I can support myself. I don't
mhm.
need you, but I want you because you enhance me." You see what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
I totally do.
That to me sounds more like it makes sense, and this is just me like I said, I don't pretend to understand anybody. I often am just like, think I am just wired differently than human beings in general because it just I don't pretend to understand too many people, but that's just something I don't get. but maybe that's true, that if these guys want if they want to be needed, then that's fair, I guess.
I
Just
think too, I really think that a lot of the messaging is stuff that they're hearing in podcasts and videos and things like that. And so it's presented an idea that resonates with them and that they like, and so they cling to that. But I think at the very base of it, really what it is simply that we all need to feel valued, right?
yeah. Yeah, no,
Like, whatever that
100%.
looks like, it's not necessarily terribly relevant because in my life, I have been very self-sufficient, like, in I mean, I've rebuilt my washer and my dryer. I dug up my water main, so, 5 feet of clay soil. I saw limbs off of trees. I'm strangely strong for a woman because of a genetic mutation. So, do I need a man? Yeah. But not to do the man things, not because I can't do it on my own. I need a man for other reasons. I need a man because it fulfills me.
Yeah, and I think that totally makes sense, and I think we might be saying the same thing, just different. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
That's interesting that, it's funny, and I wanted to ask this because one thing I've noticed in my life is, I'm very active with my kids,
Yeah.
and, I'm always doing things with them. When they were younger, I just made a point because I was just so busy all the time that I would just, "Hey, I'm going to the store. You wanna come with, and maybe we'll go stop by and get ice cream?" Stuff like that.
Yeah.
Uh, and it just kinda developed into these other things, and what always struck me was, like, a lot of people would give me this kind of external validation of, like, "You're such a great dad. You're such a great dad," or whatever, like and in my mind, I was just saying like, I would always kind of I don't like that, and it's not because of anything with me. I just think that when people say that to me, "You're such a great dad," or whatever, I feel like it's almost more a comment on dads in general than it is
Mm.
on me. Like, I remember one person said to me, "You're not a dad, you're like a mom." And I was kind of offended by that,
Huh.
right? Because I was just like, "Wait a minute. Are we as men so bad at being present for our kids that what I view as being like what you're like that what you're supposed to do, right,
Mhm.
is
Mhm.
somehow exemplary?" So when I bring that up is I bring that up because you mentioned that there's women out there that or men think that women think that there aren't a lot of good men out there. Could it be that there's not a lot of I mean, like, you know what I mean? I mean, is that possible? Because I could tell you, like, even in, like, the single status, like,
Mhm.
there's just so many more women than men.
Right. Right. And that's yeah, so the numbers don't bear well for women. But, so there are simple things, and here's what I think. I think men are kind of beaten down to some
True.
extent.
Right.
I think that the world is hard on men. I think the weight that rests on the shoulder of a man is very heavy.
Mm.
When you are
I
looking at providing for and protecting, like, a family, I can't imagine. I mean, okay, I guess I can imagine because I'm a single mom,
Yeah, you're doing
but
it.
like, I think but I still think that it doesn't compare to, like, what my father did, who had 8 children, right?
Yeah.
And, um, and I think that men get to a place where they don't believe in themselves, and when they don't believe in themselves, when they don't feel valued,
Mhm.
I believe they retreat,
Yeah.
and when they retreat, there are less good men available.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring this up. I think that this might even be, a much more, like, I can only talk about LDS spaces because that's what I've been my whole life, right? So I
Right,
don't know what
right.
it's like out there in other spaces, but, like, I think that this might be even more prevalent in our space because of the way that we kind of promote traditional family units. And when I
I
say
agree.
traditional family units, I mean, like, husband goes out and works, woman stays home,
Right.
because, I've had some conversations about this with my friends, some of which are, still married friends that are going through struggles, and they're talking about their wives and them and how they can't, they just keep doing this.
Yeah.
And so when I talk to them, I explain, I go, the issue is especially in our spaces where, we tend to get married young.
Mhm.
The girls tend to get married a couple years out of high school. Some of them don't finish college, or if they do, they finish college, but then immediately start having kids, right? And
Mhm.
so they've never really had a long opportunity to have professional jobs. I know your experience was different. I know we'll talk
Sure.
about that,
But
but
I was very different being 32 and single in Utah. So,
right. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
yeah.
And that's what's so crazy is when you think about it back in the 90s and early 2000s when
Mhm.
we like early 2000s when we met. Yeah, like if you were in your 30s and single, people were like thinking there was something wrong with you. You know what I mean? Like you know what I mean?
I
They'd be like,
remember oh, the stories I could tell you. I remember being 27 at BYU, and I'm still single, and by the time I was 27, I was comfortable with it, right? I was
mhm,
just like,
mhm.
"Yep, this is me." And people being like, "Oh my gosh, you're 27? Like, are you worried?"
Yeah,
And I'm like, "As a matter of fact, I'm not worried. I don't feel like I've run out of opportunities." But yeah, it's a total sentiment that if you
yeah.
don't get married early, you're in trouble.
Well, we're gonna talk. I want to talk to you about that. Because these are some of the cultural things that I think we don't talk about too often, and the effect that has on people. But back to what I was saying before was so you have this situation where you get two people who get married super young. They start having kids very young, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? I'm just saying that that's how it happens.
Yeah.
And so you have a young girl, 19, 20, 21, maybe, never really had a professional job, starts having babies real young. Guy is out there trying to make ends meet. And so they live completely different lives.
Mm,
And so they're neither one is more important than the other, but they're very different stresses.
yeah.
So you have a guy, and I know it's not like this every if someone's sitting out there going, "Well, that's not my experience." I know, but this is
Right.
generally, right?
Ah,
So you got a guy who's out there who is killing himself trying to make ends meet for a family, and Mormons have big families, right? We have, most of us have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 12 kids, and they're trying like you had your dad supported 8,
yeah.
right? That's
Yeah.
insanity. Okay,
Mhm.
I got 4, and it's insanity. And so you're trying to support them. You're working long hours. Sometimes some of these guys I know working 2 jobs. They come back home and you got a frazzled wife who's been dealing with these maniacs we call kids all day, and hasn't had an adult conversation all day. And of course, when you got all those little kids, dishes aren't done, house isn't clean, all that stuff. Guys coming home and being like, "Whoa, what'd you do all day?" And then the woman's like, "Oh, well, you got to go out there and be all fancy while I'm in here with these monsters, right?" And so it's often I just go, you guys are talking past each other. And for as a guy who has lived the traditional LDS provider role as a father, what I would tell the women in your sphere, who are talking about this is you really don't understand the pressure. It is daunting. I mean, like, it is daunting, and this is the way I would describe it, and I don't want anyone to take this offensively, what I'm about to say. But there is a level of being a sole provider that is so scary. There's no safety net. So if you're a homemaker and you've got family around, I know not everybody does, but if something happens to you, you get sick, you get disabled, you get hit by a car and you're down for a couple of months, yeah, things are gonna run not as well. But
Mhm.
there are people around that can rally around and help. Relief Society can bring dinners, mom can come watch the kids, dad can take time off of work. If you're the sole provider and you get hit by a bus, there's nobody to make that money for you. There's
Yeah.
nobody else. It's just you. The
Mm,
the money you bring home pays for everything, all the extracurriculars, the mortgage, all of those things. And so, yeah, you take a day off and you don't have paid time off,
mhm.
you aren't eating. As
Yeah.
someone when I was still trying to make it to college, I was a commissioned salesperson. My first was born, I had to take 2 weeks off of work And that crushed us
Mhm.
because that's half of my paycheck gone. 'Cause it's
Yeah,
commission, right? I mean, I had a small hourly rate that I would get paid, but 3/4 of my pay was commission. I didn't get paid, right? I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
and yeah, I mean, that is a different pressure, and I think that for the men that I know, you know, I would say just a thank you is almost as important as I love you is to a woman, you know?
yeah. And that reminds me of a memory that I had just recently as it's been Christmas time. I have this memory, of sitting in my living room as a child, and there's snow outside, and it's like the noise of the world is muted, and we had this fireplace with an insert, the room is filled with warmth, and as a child, I had no concept that anything was wrong with the world. I had no worries, and I absolutely attribute that to the fact that my father created a space of safety for me where I did not have to worry about the world outside, and I know that he was working a full-time job. Often he would come home, he would rebuild cars and sell them to bring in extra money. He also did sales for a lot of my life. He traveled 5 days a week. He was gone except for weekends, to support us. And the safety that I was able to experience, I can think of no greater gift than that he gave me that. And honestly, it's something I haven't experienced since I left his home. But that is the power. I mean, that is a significant weight that rests on men's shoulders, and that is
Mhm.
the beauty of what it provides, and it is
Yeah.
priceless.
That's that is really well said, y y y and it's interesting when you bring up childhood because, like, my home when I was a kid, was pretty, pretty tumultuous, we had a lot going on, and, so I don't know if I necessarily felt that, same safety you did,
Mhm,
but, I'm actually kinda grateful because I learned pretty young that the world is not a safe place, you know?
mhm.
And, for all the safe space people out there, I got news for you. It's just not. It's just not. The world is a dangerous place, right?
Right.
And, you know, so, uh, but the interesting thing that I think comes with time when you're a kid is when you get to be the age your parents were when you were a kid and you realize what they were going through. Like I have right now at my age, 44, I have such a deeper respect for my dad than I did when I was a kid because, he muddled through a lot and he's the great example of life of there's never like you're never too old to make changes, right?
Mm.
But like
Mhm.
but looking I just was like, I don't understand how you make these decisions. And then I had to make decisions, and looking at those and going, "Oh man, like this is a lot more stress than you could imagine, the
Yeah.
pressure that they're under." And, so yeah, let's go back a little bit though, and I wanna talk about some of the things that we were talking about earlier. Now I forgot what they were. We were talking about something, I go, "I actually wanna talk about that, but I wanted to finish my point because 'cause I'm so smart." Um, what 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 was it that you were saying? Um, you said something about it was right before I went on that rant about the differences between, the pressure men experience. Oh, okay, back to being yeah, when you were 27 and single. So I
Yeah.
wanna I wanna ask you your experience on that. Because I remember being younger and thinking like, you know, it almost felt like it was like a race.
Mhm.
Because, like, you would come home from your mission, and there would be, your friend would it'd be people dropping like flies, and then they disappear from
Yeah.
the YSA, right? You'd be sitting there, and you'd be like, "Oh, that good-looking girl, she just hooked up with that guy they met 3 weeks ago, and now they're engaged, and they're gonna get married in 3 months." And you're like, "Well,
Yep.
I don't wanna be the 130-year-old in the YSA," right? You know what I mean? You don't wanna be that
Yep.
guy. And so,
Yeah.
so can you tell me, like, just how did it you mentioned, earlier, you were like, "Ah, by the time I was 27, I was comfortable with it." Well, so was there that means there was a time you weren't. Can you kinda talk about that?
Yes, absolutely. So I remember being 24. I was 24 years old when my last girlfriend got married,
Ooh.
which meant I was the only one left that was still single from my childhood friends.
Mm,
And many got married very young, right out of high school, right? My
mm.
sister got married at 19. Um, and I remember
Still married? Still
feeling
married? Is she still married?
no.
Ah, yeah, okay.
You know what's really interesting? I had a group of friends. I had 8 by the time I graduated high school. I had 8 friends that were either pregnant or got somebody pregnant, and most of them are still together.
Wait, 8 of them that, like, got pregnant or got someone pregnant before marriage, and now they're all together still together?
By the time we graduated high school, yeah.
That is wild.
Wild, right? Totally wild.
Statistically, almost impossible. That's crazy.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
totally crazy. So,
Wow. That's amazing.
anyway,
So but
um
anyway, back to what you were
yeah, back
about
on
your
the
children.
ranch.
Yeah.
So yeah, I felt very lonely actually.
Mhm,
I felt like a misfit to some extent.
mhm,
I was, let me think, by the time I was 24, I was running restaurants.
mm,
And so I was professional, I had a career. Um, and I remember, so from there, I went on to I was a sales leader for Allstate Insurance, and I managed 36 agencies in the state of Utah. And that was when I was 29 and still single, obviously. And
mhm.
I managed a lot of men that had been in the industry for quite a while and were significantly older than me. And when I started, I didn't necessarily get a great reception from everyone because I was young, and I think because I was female, and it was kinda like the good old boys club. They'd been around a long time, and I don't fault them for that. That's just the life experience that they had, right?
Sure.
So, to some extent, I had to kind of win them over, but at one point, I had an agent ask me, he said, "Why are you still single?" Because I seemed to have everything going for me, and, I said to him, very frankly, I said, "Because I don't love myself enough to date the men that I would marry, and I don't hate myself enough to marry the men that I'll date."
Hmm,
And
that's
that
interesting.
kinda took him back a little bit.
Yeah,
Um,
that's a cry for therapy.
right? So true, so true. Um, Luckily, I was in therapy at that
Oh,
point,
good, good.
but, to become comfortable with still being single literally had to do with me coming to understand how God felt about me,
Mm,
and once I understood that, I was simply just comfortable in my own skin, and I still had things to work on, I still had things to change. Absolutely, I did not get married younger because I had, I had a history of some abuse and some trauma, and I wasn't gonna take that into my bedroom.
mm, okay.
So, I
Did
waited
you
until
was that, sorry to interrupt you, but I have to
No,
ask,
go ahead.
was that a conscious decision, or do you think that that was something just unconsciously you were kinda holding on to and you had to figure that out later?
I think it was a little bit of both because
Okay.
initially it's that I had apprehensions, right?
Mm, mhm,
But then it was a matter of this is like when I got married, I wanted to give my husband the best of everything. And until I could provide that, I wasn't going to commit. And actually, this is kind of interesting. Even still in my life, I've only had 2 exclusive relationships because I just wasn't willing to commit until I could go all in, and one was right after my mission when I dated someone I thought that I would marry, and the other was my husband.
mm, m'kay. Wow. So, going back to that, so,
Did that
what
look like
di
a red flag?
a red flag? No, 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 not I mean, I no, it was interesting because well, I think I'm
To
more
some it will,
interested
and that's
I'm
fine.
I'm just interested in the experience because I remember there were I think it's different now, right?
Mhm, I do
But,
too,
like
I do too.
but back in, like, the early 2000s, the YSA was 18 to 30.
Mhm.
There were very few 30-year-olds. There were, like,
Yeah,
2 or 3,
yeah.
I would say probably 10% were over 25,
Yeah.
and if they were the females, like, and this sounds terrible, the chatter around was like, "Okay, well, they must be crazy or something if they haven't,"
So,
you
even
know?
as a missionary, interestingly, even as a missionary, so I served a mission at 21 years old,
Mhm.
and there was talk that, "Oh, she's on a mission because she couldn't find someone to marry, so she's out here to find someone."
Oh, yeah, I never so when I was on my mission, I did, and I always hate that phrase because I feel so old when I say it,
I know, right?
but when I was on my mission, I was a zone leader, for a long time, like 14 months, and I always shared my zone leader area, for whatever reason, with sisters.
Mm,
So, I served around sisters quite a bit,
mhm.
and yeah, there was like almost like a stigma around sister missionaries, and I'm ashamed to say I was a part of it, right? Like, because back then, that was like, it was not as common
It
as sisters
wasn't,
around.
and it wasn't even really encouraged. Like, I
No,
decided I got my patriarchal blessing at 12 years old, and it said, "Prepare yourself to teach the gospel to the people of the world." So when I was 12, I decided I was going on a mission.
sure.
And, but absolutely, there was an idea that if you went on a mission, it's because you didn't have other opportunities. And I remember sitting at a zone activity, and the elders were looking through the pictures of me from before my mission. And there were some, relatively glamorous photos. And one of the elders said, "Elders, look at what a mission will do to a sister." I was like, "What?" And then
Oof.
the conversation ensued about the fact that I couldn't find anybody to marry. And I was like, "Okay, wait. I'll have you know, there were actually 5 men before my mission that inquired about marrying me." It
You know,
was not a matter of me not having options.
this is not
I was going on a mission.
this is not new news to me either because I interviewed a friend of mine, Debbie Evers, who she shared an experience about when she just always felt she wanted to go on a mission, and she had men that were interested in marrying her, and she went to her I don't remember if it was her bishop or her stake president, one or the other, was basically like, "You should stay home and get married." You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like even they were being encouraged to stay home and get married. And so, yeah, there was like this weird stigma that's definitely gone now. Like it's not there anymore.
Yeah, I
I
totally
don't
agree.
think so.
Yeah.
Especially
Yeah.
now, crazy that now it's like 18 and 18. They're
Yeah,
able
now
to
that
just
the
go.
age limit has changed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Twice,
now,
right?
so now it's down to that's fair, which
Mhm.
I think that's the way it should be,
It's
right?
fabulous. I just waited. I was literally just biding time. I would run into people after high school and they're like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I'm getting ready to go on a mission." They're like, "Oh, when are you leaving?" I'm like, "In 2 years."
Yeah, right, right, and so but I remember the way I used to tell people because I think there was back then this way, which was there were missionaries like you and my friend Debbie, and those sisters could out-baptize any elder 2 to 1. Like, they were the best missionaries, and then there were the other sisters that were, there were some that would go out for
Like,
maybe
what
that
else am
wasn't.
I gonna do?
Yeah, maybe it wasn't that they were, like, couldn't find somebody. They didn't find the right person, they didn't know what else to do, or some even running away from something, you
Mhm,
know? At least that's what I saw in my mission, right? There were some where, like, they had an abusive situation, they were trying to get away from it, whatever, and that there were those 2. But I gotta tell you, now I've been a ward mission leader, I've worked with sisters a lot, and I'm like,
mhm.
they're the they're awesome missionaries. They're better than the elders.
I think
And
that women have an opportunity to get in and teach people sometimes that others don't. And so
yeah.
there's a benefit certainly there are some people that are gonna respond to elders, and there are some people that are going to respond to sisters.
Yeah, and I just think, the other thing I would say is like that thinking, it's interesting with age and time, and as we gain greater light and knowledge, we look back at things that we had thought and been like, "Ugh, that probably wasn't good. Wish I could have that
Yeah.
back." You know what I
Cringe a
mean?
little
Because
bit. Yeah.
because my friend Debbie is a great example, she told me we did a podcast here, and it was really great. And she shared her experience about going on a mission, and then she shared offline with me. She goes, I wanna let you know that, like, when we were, because we had been, like, best friends since we were, like, 15, 16, right? Just
Mhm.
And she just said, "I wanted you to know that you really were not supportive of me going on the
Oh,
mission." And I was
interesting.
like, "Really?"
Huh.
And, because I didn't even remember that, and she goes, "No, you
Mhm.
were, like, telling me how crazy sisters were and, like, and how I would come back crazy, and, and you were, like, trying to discourage me, and I really, and I just was like, "I'm sorry." Like, I just
Sure.
didn't what I mean? Now I look back and I go, "What an idiot." Right? Like, I did,
Well, life experience, right? I
I
mean,
mean, I was 22, my brain wasn't fully developed, so,
there
you
you
know,
go.
that
There
was
you
the
go.
problem. So, but now looking back, I go, "Man, like, that's one I wish I coulda gotten back," right?
Mm,
And
mhm.
so and I coulda been more supportive to my friend and other sisters who are around, But like I said, the sisters that I served around, they were almost all of them were A plus. Some
That's
best friends
awesome.
I still keep in contact with some of them, they're married and have kids and, they're doing great, and, but yeah, they just anyway.
Well, I'll tell you what I did to win over the elders because there were a handful of elders that didn't like sisters, right?
Mhm, mhm.
So, I did, of course, the thing that would win anyone over, and I would bake for them. Like,
Oh.
"Oh, you like cheesecake? Oh, here's a cheesecake. You like pumpkin pie? Here we go." And eventually, all of the others liked me pretty well.
Yeah, it was funny, I just recently my mom had found my mission, my mission scrapbook in her garage, and, and um so we were going through it I was going through it with I think one of my daughters, and they showed it was a picture of me on a couch with a sign, like, a completely destroyed apartment that said with a sign that said, "We love sisters," and they're like, "Well, what is this?" And I go, "Oh, yeah. So, we broke into the sisters' apartment when they were gone, and we completely trashed the apartment, and then we took their cameras that they left, and we
Yeah.
took pictures of ourselves in their apartment, destroying their apartment."
Oh
'Cause
my
our
gosh.
and so they were like, "You did that?" And they go, "Yeah, it was all in fun. They
Yeah.
got us back. I don't know how, but that was the picture that I took with the sisters' cameras." And so but
That's
yeah,
awesome.
so we had a good time with the sisters. We
Yeah, we had
enjoyed
some
it.
fun stuff like that back and forth.
Yeah. Yeah, so anyway, going back to, your experience. So, um, I want you to share so I think you mentioned something earlier to the effect of, there are women within the church that don't feel a sense of community,
Mhm,
and, maybe they don't feel a sense of community in their wards or maybe in their stakes, and so they're finding community with your group.
mhm.
Um, Perhaps you can share for listeners who, because there's a lot of LDS listeners here, many of who are married and just don't know anybody who's divorced or don't know anybody who don't have a family member or haven't experienced it themselves.
Yeah.
Perhaps you can share what that's like. Like,
Okay. So, I think I am a little bit of an exception because I am an extreme extrovert. So
couldn't tell.
really?
Yeah.
So for me, like, when I was like, once my divorce was finalized, I was going out, and I just went out alone. I went out alone, and because I got involved in the groups, that were already out there, and so when I showed up at activities, people recognized me, and my best friend, that's how I met her.
Mhm.
But that's not comfortable for the vast majority of people. They're not gonna just show up in an activity alone, right?
Yeah.
And I think certainly there is a stigma. So I will tell you, for me, probably the hardest part about being divorced was that I had this idea that, I married in the temple. My marriage was going to be forever until it wasn't.
Mm,
And there are a lot of reasons for why that was. And I take full accountability for the fact that I allowed an unhealthy dynamic in my marriage. And that's on me.
mm,
Uh, Next time, I will do things differently, and there will be a next time, and I will be happily married.
mm,
Um, but to have that shift from a place where, first of all, I felt like getting divorced meant that I was a failure.
mm.
that I had, and honestly, that's my kids hold me accountable. My kids still tell me I ruined our family.
Mm.
So I still get that.
Where
Um,
let me stop you right there. Is that because are you the one who asked for the divorce?
I
Or is
am.
that okay, alright.
Yeah.
So they know that. And your kids are how old?
Those are I have 2 boys that are 14 years old that are 5 months apart in age because the oldest is adopted.
Okay, alright. And
So
so
it's my boys.
yeah.
And I think part of that has to do, I think largely it has to do with things that they are hearing.
Mm,
I don't know that, but I asked their dad to leave, and they
mm,
remember that.
mm,
Yeah, they hold me accountable. My opinion is, well, I made the choice that I made when it became relevant to me, that or apparent to me, that it was in the best interest of my children to end
yeah,
the marriage,
yeah.
because I would have stayed forever.
Mm,
I would have stayed forever.
mm.
So
You
there's a lot to that, but
okay, and in your view, not wanting to speak for your ex, but when you asked for the divorce, was he upset about that? Did he wanna try to make it work, or was he kinda like, "Okay, fine."
he did wanna make it work. Okay, so what it came down to was I actually had an experience in the temple, and after that, said, like, I felt like I had done everything I could to make things work, and it was not a healthy environment, and again, I created part of that. Um, but so I asked at that point, I said, "I want a separation of at least a year, maybe up to 2 years. I need to see that things are gonna change and that we can get this to where it can be healthy." Because I have a daughter that's adopted, and once she came into the picture, things shifted for me in a way that I was not willing to let her grow up with the expectation that she should have the life I was living.
Mm, m'kay.
So I asked him, I said, "I need a separation of at least a year to 2 years," and he said his opinion, his feeling was that that meant that I wasn't committed to the marriage, and so at that point, he actually decided to file for divorce.
Mm, m'kay.
But in my kids' minds, I asked him to leave, and that's valid. So,
Mm. Yeah, that's a tough one. That's a tough one. It's hard when, like, you're doing what you think is best, but, they're not, but, they don't see it.
and I'll tell you, I have a philosophy. There are a lot of things. I mean, my my boys are angry with me, like,
Mhm.
and even my daughter has been taught that I was once married to her dad, and I was mean to him and asked him to leave. So,
Mm,
but I have a philosophy that, I won't talk poorly about. There are some things that I have to clarify if accusations of a certain gravity are made against me. But there are some things for the most part, I just tell them, "You don't understand, you don't know." And I won't talk poorly about their father because I believe that children view themselves as an extension of their parents, and if you are willing to demean another parent, in essence, what you are doing is telling that child that their own worth is diminished,
hmm,
and I won't do that.
interesting. Okay. So, you're divorced,
Mhm,
you're in this, singles space,
mhm.
um, and in Utah, it sounds like you've found a community, that, pretty large community,
It
um,
is. Mhm.
and, so but do you now I don't really know anything about the single scene in Utah. I've heard that there are kind of singles wards that are for mid singles or whatever you would call it,
Right,
older than
right.
YSA.
Mhm,
Um,
yeah.
uh, do you go to one of those wards or do you go
I go to my family ward. I think I'm in the best ward in the world. And I've been super lucky because where I think a lot of people feel like they no longer have a sense of community, I have an incredible ward that have
Mhm.
always done an amazing job of taking care of me. So without question, I still go to church and feel like these are my people, you know?
How do they do the mid-singles ward with kids? Do they just take the kids with them?
I don't think so. My guess is that they either I mean, in fairness, a lot of people my age are empty nesters, you know?
Oh, okay.
Or maybe they
Sure.
go on the weeks that they don't have their kids. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Um, but and I think it's much harder to be a single man in the church than a single woman
Mhm.
because I think men are by nature men are less approachable. Simple like I can walk up, I can hug everybody. I hug
Mhm.
everybody I meet.
Mhm.
If a man does that, it's not going to be received the same way,
Sure.
right?
Sure.
So, just by virtue of that framework, it is more difficult for a man to be single.
I also think that there's a level of, females in your space, I think, are much more just generally supportive because they're more open about the experience.
And
Whereas
we'll talk to each other.
right,
Well,
whereas men don't. Um,
exactly.
and that's, that's just, that's a hard part of it. And also the approachability makes it a little bit harder to, I was talking to a friend of mine, he was divorced long time ago, he's remarried now, but he was talking about his, separation, divorce to his first wife, and he was like, it was really interesting because, she was kind of the one that precipitated it. She's the one that wanted the divorce. He did not. This is how he explained it to me, right?
Yeah.
And he
Which
was like,
is generally, from what I understand, 70% of divorces are initiated by women.
"Yeah, that's interesting." But he was like, "She's the one who did it. She didn't really have a great, she's the one that made the actions that led to the divorce. Yet everyone kind of wrapped their arms around her and not necessarily him." And he was like, "Well, wait a minute. Like, I didn't do anything wrong here, right?" And um, and I think that's just the nature of the Relief Society versus the Elders Quorum, right? I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
um, they are just so much more. I don't know. They're just. It's a little bit more. It's different.
A and women nurture women. But there's also, I believe part of it is cultural, um, not just in the church, but maybe like Western culture, in that men are not allowed to be vulnerable on the same level that women are. So a man isn't gonna walk into a room and shed tears in front of a bunch of people, but women will, right?
Oh well,
We're gonna
yeah,
say,
but
"I'm dealing with this hard thing," but men have to be stoic.
oh, yeah,
And
and come on, like, let's be real. You don't want a guy who's just crying all over you. Like, really, like, if you the women I know, if they're being honest, they don't want a guy who just cries at a drop of a hat,
And
right?
all right, I will tell you exactly how I feel about that. I have no problem with a man crying to me about the things that are painful and are like deep wounds. What I want also is to know that he has the fortitude to search for and find solutions. And that allows me to maintain ultimate admiration and respect for him.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's interesting to me, how many men out there, um, are not problem solvers, if that makes sense. Maybe that's not the
Sure.
right way to put it. Um, yeah,
Like if the house is falling down, you can tell me you're freaking out because the house is falling down. I wanna know as a woman that you're gonna do everything you can to hold the roof up.
right.
And that's so I tend to believe that I function a little bit more like a man in a lot of ways than a woman, and I think that's partly genetics. I think that's partly that I grew up with 6 brothers, and I was treated the same way that my brothers were. I was held to account like my brothers were, and so I very much am a problem solver, and then I have a background in business. I've run businesses, and that's part of running a business,
Mm,
but, so yeah, I'm gonna hold the roof up. If I
mhm.
have somebody else that's gonna help me hold the roof up, oh my gosh, the level of attractiveness there, off the charts.
So what does that look like though to you? Like, you talked earlier, and this is something that I find really interesting in kind of like this meme culture that we live in now, right? Where there's
Mhm.
reels out there about everything. You hear these big therapeutic buzzwords like toxic masculinity, narcissism, avoidance, love languages, attachment styles, and it's just
Uh,
like it's enough to sometimes just make you sick, right? You're just like,
yeah.
"Oh my gosh, if I have to hear one more thing about a love language or, or whatever." So perhaps like what because I think that this is just my view of people might I think what's happened with a lot of these buzzwords is they are legitimate things, then
Mhm.
they throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Yeah.
So,
They
like
create an excuse.
yeah, so, like, for
Mm.
example, like, avoidant behavior or whatever, okay, now everything that that person does because they're avoidant is now avoidant behavior, right? Okay,
Yeah.
well,
And
5% of
everyone's a narcissist. Everyone.
oh, yeah, everybody's a narcissist, and the thing is, in fact, there's a good podcaster out there, he's a therapist as well named Tony Overbay, I've had him on the podcast a couple of times, and he's awesome, he does a whole podcast called Waking Up to Narcissism. Anyone who
Oh,
thinks that
wow.
they yeah, like, listening to him, it's great, and he would say, people use the term narcissism to describe emotional immaturity. So there's
Mm.
only like 3% of Americans who are true blue narcissistic personalities.
And it is not at all what you think it is. It is a far cry from selfishness.
Right. And then
Yeah.
and then you have people who are emotionally immature and then they use these gaslighting, confabulation and all these words and then people get them skewed and now anytime someone lies it's gaslighting or
Yeah.
anytime somebody has a different perception, they're being gaslit and so it's hard. So, I bring all that up to say, I think there is toxic masculinity and then there's just masculinity.
Right.
So, when you say masculinity, um, what do you mean?
So what I believe that this is just my own thing. I believe masculinity is healthy. I believe masculinity is the way that God created men. And anything that isn't that is simply toxic, but I don't consider it masculinity.
Mhm.
So for me, masculinity
Wait, hold
looks
on, hold on,
like
hold on, hold on, stop there. What do you mean by that? Say that again. You said that if it's toxic, it's not true masculinity?
that's absolutely what I
Okay.
believe.
So,
Yes.
like,
Yeah.
what would you describe as toxic behavior that's called toxic masculinity that you don't think would be considered masculinity?
Okay. So for example, there's a lot of talk around how women need to be submissive.
Okay.
So the unhealthy aspect of that, the male side of that that's unhealthy is controlling behavior.
Sure.
That's not masculinity. A
Right.
true masculine man leads.
Right.
And when you lead, when you are worthy of following, w- women will follow.
Mhm. So
That
where
that's
where
that's my feeling.
so where is the line for you between being a leader and being controlling?
Okay, a true leader inspires.
Okay.
They inspire, and specifically in a masculine sense, they inspire by creating safety.
Yeah.
They create safety, and you do that by being dependable. You do that by being decisive. You do that by being strong, by being a problem solver, by being willing to do the hard things, and
Mhm.
by being dependable. I think work ethic is a super important part of that.
Mm,
If you are doing those things, you are creating safety. And when
mhm,
you've done that, you are going to innately be a leader. You lead by example. But even as someone who has worked, and in fairness, I've been told that I have a lot of masculine traits,
mm,
and that's unattractive to a lot of men. I understand that. It's who I am, and I don't have any intention of changing.
mm.
But a true leader, in my opinion, a leader behaves in such a way that others feel value. And because they feel valued, they follow.
So here's a topic that I've run into in the church that I struggle with, I guess.
Hmm.
I struggle with the concept because it doesn't make sense to me. So I have friends, and this has not been my experience really in my relationships, but, like, you know, somebody wants to move out of state, right?
Mhm.
And somebody and, either the wife or the husband wants to move out of state, let's say, and the other spouse does not.
Mhm.
And so whatever level there well, I feel it's this way, I feel it's that way. Um, we were taught that the man is the priesthood holder and the head of the household. So I know of some men who would then assert their priesthood and be like, "Well, God is giving me revelation that we are supposed to move wherever, and so we're gonna move there." And where is the line for you? Because I don't know, right? Like, to me, that sounds a little bit like unrighteous dominion, but
Sure.
I
Mhm.
don't know, right?
Right.
Maybe he is. Maybe he's gotten personal revelation. I don't think I've ever had that experience where my revelation has been so strong that I'm basically, like, asserting authority, you know what I mean, in my
Yeah.
household,
Yeah.
but, like but, but, e where is that line for you where you want a leader, but it's not controlling? And and
That's a
and
really
and
great
and I wanna say I'm saying this because I want the men to hear this from a woman,
Mhm.
what they want to see and hear.
If my husband, let's use that same example. If my husband says we're supposed to move and the spirit doesn't tell me, if the spirit says you're absolutely not supposed to move, I'm going to die by that.
Mhm.
But if the spirit doesn't tell me that, I'm going to follow.
Hmm.
So for me, and I had situations it, concerning employment, for example, where my husband said I'm supposed to leave my job. He didn't have anything else set up, and was that the right choice? I don't know that that was the right choice, but what I know is that the spirit didn't say, "Object strongly." And so I
Hmm.
went, "Okay, you
Yeah.
do what you need to do."
Man, it's just
However, this for me is a determining factor. If you are going to make such a strong and bold call as something that's going to completely change lives and redirect the course of our lives, here's what I wanna know. You need to have already established that you will make things happen, that you will provide that safety, that you will take care of us. If I already believe that, I'm in.
see, that's interesting. This is an area where I'm like, "Man, I don't know the answers," right? Because I can tell you in my own experience, this is something I've had to learn hard lessons about personal revelation where I felt revelation that didn't make a lot of sense, right?
Yes.
And I go, "That does not make sense." Don't that I know that I'm, strong revelation, and I'm just like,
Mhm.
"I don't see it." I don't see it, and then eventually something happens that compels me to do. Almost
Yeah.
always, and that's the thing that I'm a little hard-headed with God about, is that I'm, like, sitting there and I'm going, "Okay, God, I know that's what I'm supposed to do, but, I don't know, I need a signier sign than that," and then he'll be and then next thing you know, he'll be like, "Okay," and that'll be something really terrible, and I'm like, "Ooh, coulda done without that," and then I'm forced to
Yeah.
do it, and it's super uncomfortable, but yeah, it's interesting this dichotomy because it's like I believe masculinity is protection,
Mhm.
but not control, right?
Right. Not compulsion.
Yeah, not exactly, not compulsion, strong leadership,
Mhm.
um, you know, I in uh, it's a struggle to figure out where that is, right? Where that
Yeah.
line is. Like, with my children, this is one that I've really struggled with in that, uh, I know their potential. I know how intelligent they are. I know that how talented they are. But I also know how, unmotivated they could be. And
Yeah.
so it's like, where is the level of push that is appropriate, but not force? And I feel like I really toe that line. at times,
Mhm.
and it's a struggle, and I often tell my children, my oldest son and I, we've had some pretty deep conversations, just, like, staying up late playing cards or whatever, and I remember telling him one time, he was talking about right before he left on his mission about wanting to be a dad himself and all that, and I just said, "Hey, man, look," I was like, "I'm not gonna pretend like I did it all right." There was no rule book. I was just doing the best I could with what I had. I'm sure
Yeah.
there were some moments that you're gonna come back and you're gonna tell me were traumatizing or whatever. Totally get it. It's gonna happen. You can't, I explained to him, like, when you're a parent, you're making 1,000 potentially life-altering decisions in real time, all the time. And you
Yeah.
gotta make them in 2, 3 seconds. And those
Yeah.
some of those decisions can have life-altering, like, can be life-altering for the kid. There's no way you're gonna get them all right.
Right.
So I just told him, I was like, "So I just hope that there were some traits that you saw of mine that you go, 'Hey, I like that, and I want you to emulate it.' And then if
Mhm.
there are things that you didn't like, do something different." You know what I
And
mean?
that's a great example because it's about the consistency, right? And the same is true in the relationship between a husband and a wife when we're talking about, like, submissiveness. So, there's subservience, which I disagree with, but
Mhm,
submissiveness, that's a matter of choice,
mhm.
and that's me being willing to submit, but have I seen the consistency? Have I seen consistent effort to make good choices and to follow the Lord?
Yeah. I think, the way I would describe it rather than submissive, 'cause to me, submissive has a weird tone to it. I don't
It
know why.
can. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
something that I've kind of contemplated quite a bit recently, actually.
I think what it comes down to is it really comes down to what I would hope would be a healthy marriage would be one where each partner is looking at the marriage more than
Then
themselves.
their individual
And
needs, yeah.
and
Mhm.
so that sometimes means that you're not gonna get what you want for the benefit of the marriage.
Mhm.
You're a team. Like, I look at it almost like when I played basketball, whereas there were some times where I didn't get my shots off, but that's because it was better for the team that someone else got the shot. You
Mhm.
see what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
and I think that that's the same way, a marriage is that you should be willing to, "Hey, you know what? You know, this they need a win." Right? This is
Yeah.
one where they need a win. This is one where, is this life or death for me? Is this really a hill I need to die on? Is this something
Mhm.
I really need? Do I really need to move out of state if it's gonna make my partner unbearable? Is that something that it's a hill I'm willing to die on? And maybe it is, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it
Yeah.
is. But, you can't die on every hill. You know?
Yeah.
There can't be like, it almost like there can't be winners and losers, you
And
know?
one of the things that I've come to you mentioned, you might have to forego your own happiness. One of the things that I've come to believe is that the purpose of life is not happiness. For me, the goal isn't happiness. For me, the goal is fulfillment. Happiness is gonna come and go. Joy is going to come and go, but fulfillment comes when we see the hard times through to the other side, when we endure, and there is even a beauty in pain and difficulty that deepens our life experience and makes it worthwhile. That's fulfillment. So I will forego happiness for the whole, absolutely, for the marriage, for the family. I mean, marriage taught me that. But fulfillment is the goal, and that's what makes life worthwhile.
Yeah, I gave up on the idea of, quote, unquote, "living a happy life" a long time ago, and it's really more about a life of meaning. I mean,
Yes. Yes.
because, happiness comes and goes. There's happy moments,
Mhm.
certainly. One of the things you brought up there is, difficulties and things and I forget the context in which you were saying it. You just said it and I've forgotten it, but, whatever. It's late. One of the things that I think is imperative, especially for everybody, but I would say for men in particular, and I try to teach
Mhm.
my sons this, is that, I've often said over the last, I don't know, 7, 8 years, decade, whatever, I have simultaneously had the best and worst years of my life.
Mm.
And and, like and I mean that. I have had some of the most horrific experiences happen to me. some of which self-imposed, some of which not, right?
Mhm.
And, um, very things that like, make you not wanna get out of bed in the morning.
Mhm.
But if you don't get out of bed in the morning, you just have the bad day. You don't have the good day that
Yes.
could potentially also happen. There have been days where I looked at things. I remember one year in particular where it was absolutely horrendous, and I just every single day, and I'll just say literally every day that year. I mean, maybe literally, I shouldn't say literally, but I mean, like, oh, it felt like every day I was like, my alarm would go off at 4:45 in the morning, and I would open my eyes, and I'd be like, "I have to do this again." Felt like
Mhm.
Groundhog Day in the most
Mhm.
punishing way every single day, and I would just go, "Well, it's gotta get done," right? So you
Yeah.
get up, go to the gym, go to s you know, you take the kids to school, you do it, you get to work, you come back, you do everything, you plop your bed you down, you get up and you do it again, and then I look ba and then, I looked and I go, "You know what? I'm gonna take a week. I'm gonna take my kids here," and
Mhm.
did those things. Had great experiences. Did all these things, and then at the end of the year, I look at I have my shore up at the end of the year, and it's one of the best years I ever had. Is at work. And I was like, "How did that happen?" You know what I mean? And you look at that and winning awards and all these things and you go, "Man, like, if I woulda let this floor me, I would have just I would have just had a bad year." Right? And
Yeah. Yeah.
I think sometimes when I talk to some of these people, some of which I'm sure are in your men's group, when they're like this whole "woe is me," "I can't catch a break, I don't," "Oh, women don't pay attention to me," or whatever it is that they're saying. I think that there's a level of accountability there where you just have to extremely accept the situation you're in and just keep going.
Yes. Yes, and I think too, I absolutely believe that we get out of life what we expect, and that's kind of a double-sided coin. But for me, it means that I have to set my expectations accordingly, and then my behavior has to follow. I have to but when I believe something is going to happen, when I decide this is what I expect, I fight until I make it happen. Like, it took me 10 years to get a daughter, and nothing was gonna deter me from that. Also, I had personal revelation that God had a daughter for me, but that was one hell of an uphill battle.
So tell me that story. Let me give
Okay,
me the story for that.
alright.
Tell me what happened.
So, I struggled with infertility. I have a blood clotting disorder, so I could get pregnant, but I could not maintain pregnancies very well. I have 1 biological son, and I had 12 miscarriages. After
There's
and
a
we did
lot
in
of
vitro, like,
that is a lot of miscarriages.
it
That had to be rough.
it was incredibly, yeah, yeah, it was soul crushing. It
Yeah.
was soul crushing, and, but, it wasn't gonna destroy me, and I knew that I had a daughter, so a couple of things happened in the process. Um, I met my son Matthew, he was 6 years old. He was the son of a distant cousin who had passed away when he was 4 years old. He was living with his grandmother, who is my mom's half sister, and they came to visit my mom. When they did that, they went to the, museum, and they invited my son to go with them. And then they came back, they were playing in the front yard, and I went out to check on the boys. It was the first time I'd ever met Matthew, and the first thing he ever said to me was, "Can I call you mom?"
Mm,
And it totally floored me, and I
mm,
knew, "That's my kid."
mm,
And within a month, he was living with us. So we continued on our, in vitro journey and, donor embryos, which means my embryos weren't viable with life for the most part. The ones that were, I miscarried, and then I miscarried donor embryos, and then I had a friend offer to be a surrogate. And, there's a post on Facebook about that, but she offered to be a surrogate, and we were absolutely certain this is what God was telling us to do. And she got pregnant, and we went to the follow-up appointment. I was so excited. In vitro is horribly miserable, um, all sorts of shots, like intrusive exams. It's awful, like the hormones, and it's incredibly expensive. Um, we went to the follow-up appointment, and I remember the tech saying, "I don't see any signs of cardiac activity."
Mm.
And so I waited, hoping until her miscarriage began. And then I had a general rule when I miscarried that I would allow myself to be angry for 24 hours, and then it was time to move on. So she lost the baby, and the question that I sincerely asked was why? Why were we supposed to do this? Because if God told all four of us involved, me and my husband, her and her husband, to do this thing, there was a reason. God had a purpose in it. And I didn't know what that was. And so at that point, I decided, and my husband was done. He was like, "We've done everything we can. We're done having kids. We're not doing it anymore." And I knew I had a daughter. I knew it. I'd been told in blessings. I'd had personal revelation. I knew my daughter. I knew her. I knew what she looked like. And but I decided it was time to put it away and to be grateful for the boys that I already had. And so at that point, I made a post on Facebook where I talked about the experience and I said that I felt I still had a daughter. And, um, and then I went on with my life. And 2 years later, I was helping a friend who was a recent widow. She had four small children, um, 7, 3, and twin girls that their father died 4 days after they were born. And, I would go over and help, like many of us in the ward in the area would go over and help. I would help get the kids ready for bed at night. And she and I became very close, and I would watch her kids while she worked graveyard shifts as a nurse. So I was there holding one of these 4-month-old little girls at the time, in the middle of the night, and I looked at her and just had an incredibly strong witness that I had a daughter. And so I decided to pray about it again. And I just said, "God, if I have a daughter, help me bring her home." And the next day, I received a message from a stranger on Facebook that had read my post from 2 years prior about our surrogate losing the baby. And she said, "I have my 5-week-old granddaughter. Her parents are drug addicted and homeless, and I want you to adopt her." And that two things, I knew why. I knew why God had us go through that experience because that experience created the post and paved the way for this child to come to me in the Lord's time. And 3 days after I received that message, I had my baby girl.
Wow.
Yeah, it was incredible. It got crazy after that. The grandmother extorted us. She wanted a home in Utah. She wanted money. When we wouldn't do that, she called the police, told them that we had kidnapped the baby. They showed up at our house in the middle of the night 5 days later, but we had started the process through the courts, and, um, we had emergency guardianship issued the day that they showed up. Um, Everything worked to our favor. Like, one of the things that happened early on was my husband said the baby was in Colorado. He said, "Let's go get the baby," and I said, "We can't," and he said, "Why?" And I said, "I don't know." And this is totally an example of one of those promptings. My brother is an attorney and he had done our adoption. So I contacted him immediately when I first got the message. And he said, "I will tell you this, if you decide to do this thing, make sure that you know it is what God wants you to do. Because there's a strong chance," we knew the grandmother did not have guardianship. He said, "There's a strong chance that you could be arrested for human trafficking, and they will destroy your lives before they prove that you are innocent. They will take your children, your husband will lose his job, it will destroy your lives. So you have to know this is what God wants you to do." So when my husband said, "Let's go get the baby," I said, "We can't." And he said, "Why?" I said, "I do not know." But what ended up happening was that had she not brought the baby to us, it would have been human trafficking, and that baby had crossed 4 state lines in the process of coming not 4 state lines, but her parents lived in Oregon, she was born in Washington, grandma took her from Washington, came to Colorado, and then came from Colorado to Utah. So 4 states were involved. It would have been hugely problematic, and we would have been arrested.
Wow.
Yeah, it was crazy.
So that is an example of why you following your personal revelation is so much better than mine, because you are willing to do these crazy things when I'm just like, yeah, not getting arrested. Nope. You
I'll tell
know?
you what, the thought that I had when he told me that is I went, "Oh my gosh." Like, I had this little tiny inkling of what Nephi felt like when Nephi was prompted and told that he needed to kill Laban, and I went, "Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Okay, I get it a little bit."
I've often talked about that when I've talked to people about revelation. It's wild to me, and this is what's so interesting about revelation in general, is that everybody feels about personal revelation until you get a revelation that doesn't make sense to them. And then they're like,
Yeah.
"Well, wait a minute, wait a minute." I've had this conversation when they go, "Well, wait a minute, I don't think that God would say that." And I go, "Well, do you
Yeah.
think okay, so if you were standing next to Nephi and Nephi's like, 'Hey, God just told me that I need to cut off this guy's head.'" You'd be the guy going like, "He definitely did not." You
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
He definitely did not say
Absolutely.
that, right? And so, I don't know, it's a wild concept, but let's talk about rather than talk about the personal revelation, I wanna talk about mindset because
Okay.
because, um, I've often thought about this myself, and I've said this to people when I've done a fair bit of, speaking, in different contexts, and one thing I tell everybody is the the moment it's the small moments when you're all alone and everybody would understand why you quit, but you
Mhm,
don't. That
mhm.
often is the difference between success and failure. So when
Yep.
I listen to your story and I hear, "Oh, heartbeat's gone," husband saying, "Okay, that's it. We're not having any more kids." That for 95% of people would be the end of the story. But
Mhm.
you are like, "No, I'm not going to stop. I'm going to find my baby." And you do, because you didn't stop at the
Mhm.
moment where the 95% would. And that's
Yeah.
that I think is the story here is that perseverance, a lot of the time that success or that dream or whatever is right there on the edge of insanity, you know?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so, man, like, I don't know how many times I have thought about quitting or have thought about, doing something or saying like, "This is stupid. What am I doing?"
Mhm.
And I just go, "No, we can't quit here."
Yeah.
We're right there. We're so close.
Yeah.
And,
And I'll tell you what I do when because I feel like that all the time, and I feel scared. Like, I feel like I'm being prompted in a direction that I did not anticipate, I had no aspirations for, and I don't have a plan, there's no map. I have
mhm,
no idea. I just take the next step into the darkness.
mhm,
And on the times when I feel like that, I go, "Start again tomorrow.
mhm.
Catch your breath, sleep, eat, so that I can be rational, and start again tomorrow."
How do you get
Why
there? How do you get there? Because, like, that's the thing that I think most people miss is that space where they get up to the edge of the darkness. I've heard it often said, and I hate these cliches, but they're so freaking true. It drives me nuts. Where you're
Mhm.
like, it's when you jump off the cliff into the darkness, and then God provides a feather bed, right?
Mhm.
And it's
Mhm.
like I hear that, I'm like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I'm gonna hit a brick wall every time. But like, how do you get to that I don't believe I mean, is it something you just have always had, or is it something that you developed over time?
So I think setting the expectation is totally important that I mentioned. If I can envision it, it's my reality.
Mhm.
It's my
Okay.
reality, and I can choose to quit,
Mhm.
and I can choose mediocrity, but
Mhm.
why? Why would
Yeah.
I? And so I think it starts in the small things. I think it starts like I didn't have enough faith to take a baby that I could get arrested for because I started that day. I started by having enough faith to begin the in vitro process.
Mm.
I
Mhm.
started by praying and accepting that the Lord wanted me to use a surrogate when technically it's against the handbook of the church. It's
Is
discouraged.
it?
It is. It
Oh,
is.
that's interesting.
So, yeah, there's a little bit of a Nephi thing there, but you practice in the small things, and it's like building a muscle, right? The more you do so, the more it becomes who you are, and the more it becomes part of the way that you operate in the world. So I think of rappelling, for example. I don't know if you've ever been rappelling, but
Try
you've
not
got
to.
you've got a rope around you, and you're walking down a mountain, probably backwards, straight up and down, right? And there's this moment where you edge over the back of that cliff where you cannot feel that rope holding you. It's
Yeah.
scary as can be.
Yeah, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I don't know why
and
anyone does it.
and then you become horizontal and the rope catches and you feel it. But there
Okay.
is that moment every time, right? Every time that I'm stepping into the darkness, there's that moment of nothing's catching me right now. I can't feel it. And I take the next step and the path illuminates a little bit more. It's absolutely, I believe, a matter of practice. But I also believe that without fear, there is no courage.
Yeah.
It's
No,
okay to
that's
be
true.
scared. It's okay
Yeah,
to be scared.
that's true, and that kinda goes back a little bit to what I was saying earlier about good days, bad days, right? Is that
Hmm.
one of the things that that taught me, and I'm really looking back, I'm grateful for those years, was that it really showed me my capacity to endure hard things,
And we are
you know?
so much more capable than we think.
Oh, it's wild to think, like, I was actually talking to my son about this because there were days, I was explaining to him when he was I think he had just graduated high school or something, and I go, "I really worry about you." And he goes, what are you worried about?" I go, I just don't know if you're gonna have the grit you need to be as successful as you can be." And he goes, "Well, what do you mean?" And I go, "Well, I mean, like, I'm always gonna be here to kinda help you along, right? Like, you
Mhm.
call me and you're struggling, I'm gonna come to your aid, you know? I've put some stuff in place. College is gonna be a you're not gonna struggle, all that stuff." And I go, "I got the grit that I got because I had no other choice." Like, I worked full time and went to school full time all the way through law school, not because I just wanted to prove how tough I was, but because I had to do it. And
But
if I
in
wasn't
fairness, you could have chosen not to. You could have chosen not to get a degree.
no,
It just
that's
wasn't who you were.
well, that's true. There's an element of that, but what I'm saying is that, like, there were several times at the brink of exhaustion where I had a choice to rest or go, and I just
Yeah.
went. And it's like David Goggins says that your brain has a governor, and you gotta push back past the governor. Like, your brain only allows you
Mm.
to go to 40% of your capacity. It's once you push past that, you realize how far you can really go. And I think that there's a lot for most of us who aren't psychopaths like David Goggins, like, you almost have to get forced to that place to get there, and once you access it, you can always access it, but you aren't gonna access it until you need it, and that's gonna push you by. So, like, I think of it like what I was just telling, I just did a podcast with one of my son's friends, Edward, and we were talking about this, and I said, when I first started community college, I was like, "Man, this is really hard compared to high school." Like, it was tough, like 3-page minimums and stuff. Oh my gosh, like double
Mhm.
spaced. How am I gonna write this much about this book? And then I got to university, and then when I was at university, I was like, get at a 4-year college, and I go, "Man, this is way tougher than community college." I couldn't even, like, I this is so much harder. And then I went to law school, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, all that other stuff was a breeze." Now, once I'd gone
Mhm.
through law school, if someone told me to go back to American River College Community College, I'd walk through that place with a breeze. It would be no problem, but only
Yeah.
because I went through the steps to get to the law school, right?
You
It's almost like when you're going to the gym and I remember when I
you built
first
the muscle.
you build the muscle, and then what used to be really heavy, now you're doing reps,
Yeah.
and I think life is like that, is getting the reps and building that muscle, and if you're just afraid of being uncomfortable, like, you're never gonna have those reps. And I told my son, I'm like, "I'm just so worried about, because you're gonna get to that place and you're gonna call me and I'm gonna help you, right?"
Mhm.
And I'm like,
Mhm.
"And when I do, you're not gonna be able to push past that, and I know I don't have the stomach to make you,
Mhm.
right? So I just don't know where you're gonna get that grit, you know?"
I teach music lessons,
Mhm.
and I have my students perform.
Mhm.
And the reason that I have them perform has absolutely nothing to do with music. It's because I feel that if we choose to do the hard things voluntarily, when we're in a position that we no longer have a choice, we are prepared to do the hard things.
Mm.
If we
Mhm.
will make a habit of choosing the hard things, it prepares us and makes us resilient for when life offers us no other option.
Yeah. That's very true. Um, so now going back to this singles group, and you kind of have started, you don't wanna call yourself an influencer, but you are influencing several thousand people. Um, Tell me, like, what is your overall message?
So I have felt for probably 20 years that it was literally my life's mission to help people feel the love of God.
Mm,
Like, I literally feel that is what I'm here for. And I absolutely believe that I have a unique gift to love people. I don't care if I know you. I love you. I care about your well being.
mm,
And that's a weird thing to say, and people question it. Um, Spend time with me, and you won't question it.
mm,
But so as I started making videos, I was like, what is it? I wanted to do positivity. What is it? What do I want to accomplish? But what I settled on is that the message that I want to leave is that you are worthy of love. And that's what I share at the end of every one of my videos. And to me, what that means is regardless of whatever we do in our lives, we have an intrinsic value and God loves us. And not only are we worthy of his love, but specifically in this singles community, I want people to understand they are worthy of being loved by others.
mm,
And they can live their lives in a way that invites that love.
mhm,
I mean, human connection, it is the most valuable thing that we can have in this life. I absolutely believe that. And I try to include as many people as possible. I I'm still learning the balance between how much time I can give to all of the people that message me, but I include people in the groups. I invite people to activities. I am constantly meeting new people. I had people over Sunday night, and everyone that was sitting in my family room, I have met within the last 3 months.
wow,
So my circle continually expands, but I want people to feel loved. I want them to feel that belong. I want them to recognize they are absolutely invaluable and they are worthy of love.
okay, so, yeah, how do you make them feel that?
It's a really interesting thing that even literally just by saying it, people reach out to me and tell me that they feel that I genuinely believe that, and I do.
Hmm,
And then there are people that question me that are like, "I don't get why you're making videos. What are you doing?" And
mhm,
obviously, my message isn't for them. It's not for
yeah.
them. But,
But, like, let me ask you, sorry to interrupt you, but let me ask you a
no, go ahead.
couple other questions. Do you think when you say you're trying to make people feel worthy of love, do you feel that one like, men are feeling it less than women or vice versa?
I get most of my responses from men,
Okay.
and in fact, this is an interesting story. Someone that I knew 20 years ago in a singles ward
Mhm.
started watching my videos while he was going through his divorce.
Mm.
As soon as he was as soon as the divorce was finalized, he reached out to me, and, we spent some time together, we dated a little bit, but he specifically told me that watching those videos made him feel like there was hope for him to have love in his life.
Wow.
I was surprised. I mean, like, I don't know how it's gonna land with people. I'm sincere,
Yeah.
And for some people, it feels a little cringy. Like, I get that,
Yeah.
but I'm totally sincere.
It's interesting, I started this podcast and it started really as just kind of I just wanted to start a podcast because I had so many different groups of friends that never really talked.
Mhm.
And I have a very cr I have eclectic tastes, and that results in kind of compartmentalization of my friends. So it's like I've got my member of the church friends, got my wrestling friends, I got my high school buddies, I have, my work friends, and none of them really get to interact, and all of them have opinions of what the other group is like. And so, and I'm just like, all these people are just as valuable and are probably more the same than different. And
Mhm.
so I started this, I'm like, I'm just gonna start interviewing friends and people, and, hopefully my other friends will listen and they'll gain a little bit of understanding, maybe ask the hard questions that they would want about, like, if I've had several members of the LGBTQ community come on, and I'm willing to ask them questions that I know members of the church would wanna ask, right?
Mhm.
And I prep them for that. I say, "I'm gonna ask you some questions that maybe are uncomfortable, but that I know there's a bunch of people listening that would want to ask you, but they're afraid to." Right? And so and
Yeah.
vice versa. And so it's really interesting to me how universal this idea is that I don't think people really think that they are worthy of
Oh,
love. And
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
and and so it's really I find that concept interesting. I don't know worthy of love. Like, what does that look like and what does that mean and how does that feel?
If you recognize, okay, so for me, it is absolutely rooted in understanding how God feels about me.
Mm,
When I know how God feels about me, nothing else matters. I
mm,
don't have to question. If people devalue me, it means nothing.
mm,
There's a book called You Are Special, and it has a character in it. Um, I wish I could remember the author. Shoot, he lives in San Antonio. Anyway, he's a pastor, and there's a character in it called Punjanello, and this little village of people, they put dots on each other, and if they think you're kind of a loser, you're gonna get a gray dot, and if they think you're fabulous, they put a star on you. And people walk around with these dots and stars stuck all over him, and he only has gray dots. And then he meets somebody that doesn't have any dots or stars, and he's like, "What's going on with that?" And she's like, "Well, you gotta go talk to the maker. His name's Eli. Go talk to him, and you'll understand." And so he goes and talks to Eli, and Eli says, "Listen, the only thing that matters is what I think of you. Doesn't matter what anybody else thinks of you. I made you."
mm,
And as he's walking away, one of his gray dots falls off.
hmm.
And you said something to me interestingly, just recently, because one of the things that I'm the most concerned about is that I receive a lot of praise. And I think people are sweet. I think people are genuine. I worry very much about indulging in praise because I absolutely love myself. I recognize my strengths and my weaknesses. I think I have plenty to offer, but I recognize how God sees me. And I know where the bodies are buried. I know the dysfunction. Like, I know the loose ends. I don't ever want to think that I am inordinately special because of the things people are sharing with me. And you said, it doesn't matter what people think. And I had always thought of that in relation to criticism, but I had never thought of that in relationship to praise. And I realized that's right. It doesn't matter what people think. The
Yeah.
praise doesn't need to stick either.
Yeah, I think, it's interesting. I think that kind of, that worthy of love concept, especially within the church, is kind of I wonder how much of that is just, um, in-group bias, and what I mean by that is everybody knows internally their own train wreck, but
Hmm.
they don't know everybody else's. And we go to this, we go to church and we sit there and everybody's wearing their Sunday best, and you got
Hmm.
that family there that, the the husband and wife are still really attractive, and their kids are all
Mhm.
cute, and they're all lined up in a row, all wearing matching clothes, and they're all just sitting there eating their Cheerios and not shaking their feet on the pew, and you're just like, "Oh, man, they've just got it all together." And you sit there and you're like, it and I tell people all the time, I'm like, "They are no better than you, they're just better at hiding it," you
And you
know?
know what I think the most beautiful and attractive thing is? Absolutely, is authenticity.
Mhm.
If like, I'm at a place where I don't filter. Like, you spend time with me, what you see is what you get. I do not try to hide any of my imperfections. I will be totally honest with you. Half of my videos, I've got my hair in a bun, I don't wear makeup. This is just who I am, and, I am absolutely willing to let people see my weaknesses. Like, the people that were here the other night, they I made them go up in my bedroom to use the bathroom because my laundry room bathroom is too disgusting. That's where my teenage boys go, and they had to walk through my dirty bedroom. Like, "Yep, this is me. This is how I live." They
Yeah.
get to see the dysfunction. There is something so inviting about someone who says, "I'm not perfect." It means you don't have to be either,
We
and
my
it's so comfortable.
so my 12-year-old son, he has a group of buddies in his ward. They're all just deacons together, and
Mm.
they just all buddies. There's 5 or 6 of them, I think, and they always end up over here hanging out, and they spent, like, 3/4 of their summer in my basement and my pool, but, anyway, one of my son's friends, he heard that he wasn't gonna have a birthday party for whatever reason, and so he was like, "Can we throw him a surprise party?" And so I was like, "Yeah." So we set it up, and he came over, and it was so funny. He walks in, and we all go, "Surprise." And he goes, "I knew something was up because the house was clean." I was like, "You got me. You're dead on, kid. You're dead on. You got me pegged." So, yeah, no, but that's I think that's what it is, and I think that the thing that is there's also this level, I think, in our church, um, that comes from this concept of, like, if, that maybe God will love you more when you're better, like, "Oh, when I just get rid of that when I just take care of this one sin that I've been struggling with, that he'll love me more then, and, the reason my life is where it's at is because God doesn't love me, or, because I'm not," there's some, you know, uh, when he's gonna love me at a different day, better, and it's just such a fallacy.
Totally
Like,
agree.
God loves you perfectly right now. He loves exactly who you are, and if you never change, if you never decide to make that change, if you never repent of that sin, if you always struggle with that issue, he's never gonna love you any m y there's nothing you can do to make him love you more, and there's nothing you can do to make him love you less.
Yep.
He just loves you, period, and all of this stuff that we're talking about in church is really just a way for you to access that love more
Yeah, and
and feel it.
I believe that almost exclusively, people do not understand and learn to feel the love of God until they feel it through another person, and
Mm,
that's why I feel it's my mission. I think that people need to feel universally loved and accepted, no
mm,
matter what. Now, that doesn't mean that we have to accept bad behavior, but I
yeah,
absolutely disagree with shame, which is I really feel like the topic you're hitting on there. I believe that shame is contrary to the atonement. Shame makes us feel like we are not enough and we cannot become enough. Godly sorrow drives us towards our potential. It says, you are loved, you're valuable, you can do better. And it gives us a call to step up. But
yeah.
shame just demoralizes us and it has no place.
That's true, and that's a hard, dichotomy as well, is how do we as members of the church, get rid of that shame, but also call people out for bad behavior? Um, I mean, it's interesting, and I don't even know if you necessarily need to call people out per se, but I mean, w
Hold people accountable.
hold people accountable
Hmm.
for things that they're saying. Um,
Yeah.
it's it's a tough road, and, we I'm not quite sure how to do that. I've noticed over my life that there are some people who take direct communication as aggression, and
Mhm.
that's a struggle because I tend to be, when I'm talking to people and I get a lot of people who call me and ask me, how do I get through this or how do I and I'm just like, I don't know, man, you gotta stop doing that. You know, like,
But
like
isn't
that.
that a kindness? Because my
Yeah,
thought is we communicate in love. But one of the things I do right now in my life, specifically since my divorce, like I can't say I was super social while I was in my marriage. Um, I surround myself with people that will tell me the hard truth and hold the mirror up to my face
yeah,
so that I can progress as quickly as possible, especially when it comes to like healing, right? And
yeah.
if I'm displaying bad behavior, my friends, they're going to say, "Hey, take a look at yourself, knock it off."
Oh, yeah.
But that's a kindness. Like if somebody loves me and they want what's best for me, hopefully they're going to do it in a gentle way,
Sure.
but they're going to offer me that gift of saying, "Hey, look, I know you're capable of more and I want greater happiness for you. So please evaluate honestly this piece of yourself that's holding you back."
Yeah. Yeah, I think that is a that's an important lesson that a lot of people don't learn. Um, and, I think everyone would I recently said this, I think I can't remember why I brought it up, but I remember saying in a comment somewhere, um, I think if everybody spent half of the energy looking inward that they spend calling out people on social media for things that they think are wrong. Like, if they spent half as much time being introspective that they do calling all these other people out, the world would probably be a better place. And look, I will call a spade a spade. Like, I've definitely called people out for things that I think are inappropriate, especially in the LDS community.
Mhm.
I feel a responsibility as a guy when I see other guys doing things wrong to let them know, and
Mhm.
it's really wild to me, especially in the LDS, space, the single space of the guys that I know who, um, who really um, want to they they re they really think that, like, the women in the area have, like, these incredibly high standards. And then when you ask them about what those standards are, they're bottom level standards. You know what I mean? Like, you just sit there and you're like, "Okay, so you're wanting you wanna date, an active LDS woman, and you think that she's got, like, too many too many check boxes. What are the check boxes? Okay, so, like, they want you to go to church, okay? They want you to strive not even have, but strive to get a temple recommend."
Yeah.
And, you're just like, "Yeah, they just want perfection." I'm like, "Well, I don't think so, man."
I
I think if you're gonna date if you want like, I've had this conversation with a couple of guys, right? And
Uh-huh.
I'll just be like, "If that's what you want, like, yeah, I mean, I think you need to step it up. I don't think they need to lower the standard for you, right?"
I have a feeling, and this is part of the reason behind my men's group. I have a feeling that these are men that don't love themselves, don't recognize their capacity and their abilities. And so they are shrinking. They're not stepping up. But if they recognized how much women want and need them and how God feels about them, I think the whole picture shifts.
Yeah, I remember having a conversation with a guy where he had said something about he thought a woman was out of his league, and I
Mhm.
was like, "Not true. There's no such thing as leagues."
Mhm.
And he's like, "What do you mean there's no things as leagues?" And I go, "I don't believe that there's leagues." And I explained, I was like, "I just don't think women look at men the way men look at women." I don't think
Correct.
it's like men look at women and the first thing they ask is she hot?" Right?
Mhm.
And, like, it's all physical attraction at the beginning. and then if you have a personality, it's a bonus, right? And so, like, but the thing is that I explained this to my son and his buddies because when they were, like, 14 and just discovering girls, I took them out
Mhm.
for the birthday, and they were, like, talking about one of the buddies. He was, uh he was really afraid to talk to girls. And I was like, "What do you mean? What are you afraid about?" "Well, I mean, they're not gonna think I'm attractive." I'm like, "You're not." But they don't care about that, right? They're like, that's not what they care about. You're a funny guy, right? Like,
Ooh, and
you know
humor is attractive,
yeah,
period.
and I was like, "You're a funny guy. You have a good personality. All you gotta do is have a little bit of confidence, dress nice." I was like, "Attractiveness is, like, 4th on the list, dude." As a
Totally, and a
Yeah.
conversation I regularly have with my girlfriends, when one of us starts seeing somebody new, we will see them several times before literally we decide how attractive they are to us,
Oh.
because we are feeling out so many other aspects that determine attractiveness.
I had a friend one time tell me one of my best friends in high school, she married a guy, and she was engaged, and she called me to tell me she was engaged and getting married, and I was like, "Tell me about him, blah, 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 blah," and she was like, "Well, I'm not even really attracted to him." And I'm like, What?" And she goes, "I'm not even attracted
Ah,
to him, but I know it's right." And
wow.
then they got married, and she's like, "No, I'm attracted to him now."
Mhm,
Right? And I was
mhm.
just like and I've heard that story more than once.
Yeah.
And so this kid, I was telling him, I go, "Okay, so, he told me about, he was talking." I said, "Look, dude, if you just have to have the confidence. You just have
Yes.
to be confident. If you're confident, that is the number one thing they're looking for, just be confident." So when I see these guys who say they go, "Well," I remember the guy being like, "Well, oh, wait, so
Oh.
you say that a homeless drug addict can get a supermodel?" And I'm like, "Yeah, no, a meth head isn't gonna get a supermodel. No, that's not what I'm saying." Uh, it's like but what I am saying is that if you're a reasonably, if you're a reasonably social guy and you have a job and you know what I mean, and you shower once in a while, like, you really do have a shot at anybody. Like,
Yeah.
I remember Charlize what's her name? Charlize
Mhm.
Theron?
Yeah.
She was saying, I remember seeing an interview with her, and they were saying she had just become single. I don't know if she was married or
Yeah,
dating someone, but she'd just become
yeah,
single, and this guy was like, "I bet you get hit on all the time," and she's like,
mhm.
"Actually, I don't." She's like, "I don't get hit on at all. Guys are too intimidated to come and ask me. I wish more guys would hit on me." And I'm like,
Mhm.
"Oh my gosh." And then I was like, "Oh, that's a terrible thing for you to say." You know what I mean? Like, now they're
Open that door
the
wide up.
creeps are coming out of the woodwork. You know what I mean? And so but like, but yeah, I mean, so when I see these guys, who will say things like, "Oh, I'm just not attractive to women," and all this stuff, I always go, or I try to pump them up, and then they give me all the excuses as to
Mhm,
why. I'm like, "This
mhm.
this mindset is why you aren't seeing any, this is why you're not getting somebody. It's not because you're not worth it. It's because you think you're not worth it, and so therefore that carries to
Yes,
the other person."
yes.
And I'm like, I remember telling one guy, I'm like, Doesn't it bother you that I have more confidence in you than you do?" Like, and yeah, I mean, it's wild. I wish more guys were confident in their abilities, because if they were, they'd be so much farther ahead in their lives. Fear has killed so many people, so many
Yeah,
dreams, more than anything else.
yeah. One of
So,
the things that I will tell people, but it seems more, common with men, is that if they'll refute my opinion of them, right? And I'll say, "That's fine. That's fine if you don't want to believe it. But what I need you to do is I need you to absolutely accept the fact that I believe it,
mm,
and let's start there."
yeah, I hate that.
Because if you can believe that
Yeah. No, um,
Ah.
yeah, but, no, I think that that's good. I think that that's good because, it's interesting too, like, for me, when you bring up, maybe I shouldn't be talking about this because it's funny, I have both. I feel like I have both a superiority and inferiority
Mm,
complex where I think that anything that I do, I can do better than anybody else. but at the same time, everything I do is not good enough. So, you know what I mean? Like,
That sounds exhausting.
it is actually. It is. It is exhausting. I remember, yeah, I remember someone asking me, uh, it is. It's very exhausting. There are times where I wish there was more peace
Mm,
because, you know, when you are so driven, whether it's by superiority or inferiority, but especially when it's driven by thinking you've not done enough, you can't see the end.
mm,
So, I had a very interesting experience that a few years back where I kind of, we're taught, especially as missionaries, to be goal oriented, right? So we
mhm,
set out all these goals. And so, I remember coming back from my mission and having all these goals for my life, financial, education, marriage wise, um, kids wise, all of those things. And, um, there came a point where I literally, um, every goal was checked
wow.
that I'd had, like literally every goal that I'd ever had. Um, as far as just what I viewed as success,
Mhm,
um, was checked. And I remember when I checked the last thing off and I went to my office and I sat down and I said, "Can you rest now?" And I was like, It's not there." And that was a struggle for me because then I was like,
mm,
"Well, now I don't know what it is." Right?
mhm,
'Cause
mhm,
now I don't know if it's if all of these things, if these were all the things, 'cause, I was talking to a buddy, or actually was talking to Edward on the last podcast where he was talking about money, and I go, "Nah, money doesn't fix all your problems, it just fixes one."
mm,
And I was like, I used to make the mistake, well, if I just had, all these things and I had made all these successes and I reached all these goals, then I'd be happy. And it's a really weird experience to get there and then go, "Oh,
mm,
it didn't that payoff wasn't there." And so then you have to reevaluate and go, "Where is the payoff?" And right around then is when I started shifting away to experiences with my kids
mm,
and started, like, having experiences with people I love and,
mhm.
you
Human
know
connection.
yeah, and that has been better. It's not all the way there. I still have, like, I don't know, I don't even know if it's inferiority as much as I just love the journey more than
Mm,
the destination, I think. Like,
mhm,
I love the process of achieving. And so, but yeah, it's interesting how, human connection and experiences proved to be more fulfilling than professional achievement.
yeah, yeah,
I mean
for sure.
luckily, the professional achievement made it possible for me to have all these cool experiences with my kids, right? Um, but yeah, it was a definite struggle, and so but anyway, back to, enough about me. This isn't a Josh Edlow therapy session. Um, I so back to this group. So you have your men's group, you have your women's group. Um, do you play matchmaker ever? Do you try to, like, get these people together? You, like, have somebody in your men's group and you're like, "Oh, this guy's not as jacked up as the rest of them." And
It's
you're the
actually
girl, you're like, "Oh, this girl looks like she could use a guy who's not as jacked up," and then just be like, "Hey, let's get these 2 together." You ever do that?
it's actually, something that I've received requests for, and it's actually something that I do plan to do, yeah.
Oh,
So, I would say, 4 couples so far.
you've gotten 4 couples. Are they married?
1 is married.
1 is married and the other 3
Mm,
going strong?
mhm.
Oh my goodness. Oh, you're gonna have to
So,
start
yeah,
charging.
yeah, it's
You're gonna
not something I talk a lot about. It's, I would call it
Uh-oh.
experimental, so to speak, but
Well, now that we've done this
lots of
podcast,
communication.
you're gonna get 100 people now. They're all gonna come in. They're gonna be like, "Hook me up, Stephanie. Hook me up with
Yeah,
your friend."
yeah, it's,
I know of one of my friends that wanted you to hook him up. That guy that guy needs a lot of
Ah.
help. He needs a lot of help. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, no, he needs
Mm.
a lot of help. That's fine, no.
Mm.
But, yeah, so,
Mhm.
well, what's next for you? What's the next step?
So I'll be starting my podcast soon. We've filmed a couple of episodes, and we'll start streaming in the next month or two. And then public speaking. I will be speaking. I've been asked to speak at a LDS singles conference in Washington D.C. That will be the second week in April. And my plan, this is the big vision, is that I will start holding conferences, um, initially in Utah, and then in different cities throughout the United States where there are LDS singles populations. That's the
Nice.
goal.
Nice, and the message is that you're worthy of love.
Yeah, all sorts of different aspects of that, truly. One of the things that I intend to share in Washington, D.C., specifically with the women, I will be speaking. I believe it looks like I'll be speaking to the entire group, but there will also be a session with just men, a session with just women. For example, I want to talk about the importance of having a voice and speaking up for yourself and how that plays into healthy relationships and why it's so important and what happens when we don't do that. So that'll be one of the things that I address. But there's so many aspects of loving yourself and feeling that you are worthy of love. Like super, it's a huge topic. So
On
there's
that
plenty to discuss.
it just struck me when we were talking you were talking, you mentioned standing up for yourself and communication,
Mhm.
making sure that you're heard.
Yeah.
There's an aspect that I find really fascinating about a lot of, communication that I have, especially when I have arguments,
Hmm.
when, I can feel when it gets to a point where the 2 people in the argument are listening to respond rather than listening to understand. Like, they're not even
Hmm.
trying to figure out where the other person is coming from, they're just trying to refute
They're
everything
ready
they
for their
say.
next response. Yeah.
Yeah, they're just trying to refute everything you say, and it gets to a point where they're just not even there comes a point in a disagreement where you just go, "Nothing is getting done here." You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And
Mhm.
so I think when you do that, it's interesting. I'd be curious to hear how you address that because when you're talking about in communication in a relationship, it's so much is dependent on the hearer being willing to hear what it is that you're saying and trying to, give you the kinda give you the benefit of the doubt and that you have the best intentions of what you're saying
Mhm.
to
Yeah.
really make that communication strong, you know?
I think there are a couple of things. I would say, first of all, hopefully you're not gonna end up in a relationship where the other person doesn't care to hear your point of view. It's gonna happen sometimes, right? Human nature, it's gonna happen sometimes. However, I think some of the things that we can do initially to uncover those red flags, one of the things that's super important is to set expectations early on and to define our needs, what we need in a relationship. Because if we do that, we lay the foundation for success. By telling someone else, I used to feel like, oh my gosh, I was such a different person. But I felt like it wasn't my place to tell people what I needed. Like that was presumptuous
Hmm.
or self-focused, but in reality, what I've decided is that it's actually generous. It lays the foundation for success in the relationship because you have needs. If you don't express what those needs are, they can't be met, and eventually things crumble and fall apart.
Mm.
So if you begin by establishing what those needs are, and then you have um, healthy habits of speaking up for yourself, it doesn't mean you have to be argumentative. It doesn't mean you shouldn't be selfish, but to be able to say, so specifically for women, we are taught that we shouldn't say no culturally, not just within the church, but also just, I mean, pretty much I kind of want to say all cultures teach women that submissiveness is the goal and that we should be accommodating, that we should appease. And in the process, we can very easily become people pleasers and lose our voice. To place others people's needs above our own is only okay if it doesn't compromise us in the process. So
Mm,
it's something we can willingly choose on occasion by means of choosing sacrifice, but we cannot, as a regular means of operating, compromise our own well being for the sake of others. That's not healthy. If you're doing that and you don't have a voice, eventually a relationship will fall apart because both people's needs have to be met. So it's super important that you can speak up for yourself, that you can say the things that truly need to be heard. And if you have established your needs in the beginning, I think that you get to see, they say it takes 3 months for patterns of behavior to evolve. Give a relationship 3 months. And if you're seeing consistent behaviors where your needs are not being met, you know what you need to know about that person. You see the red flags and you can move on. So that's a little bit of the framework that I would say.
hmm, makes a lot of sense. Easier said than in practice, right? Because that's the
Yes.
thing that's the thing that's hard. I was
Mhm.
what other thing I stuck on when you were talking that I thought was kinda interesting was, you mentioned, well, unless you're with somebody who doesn't care about your needs, and I think that's very few. I just think there's a
Yeah.
lot of people who maybe don't care enough. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like, um it's interesting because, like, a lot of this stuff that we talk about that I think is important can just get misconstrued. Like, when does
Hmm.
self-care become selfishness? When, like, "Oh, yeah, I gotta go do this thing for self-care," but it's affecting your partner, right? I mean,
Hmm.
there's these things that are just, like, fine lines that I think, again, for me, it's just you have to always be interested in your partner's experience, and then also, you also have to have the courage to speak up,
Exactly.
and
Exactly.
say and be afraid to introduce, positive tension in your relationship where, maybe it's uncomfortable, because anything that you do, anything of consequence, you're gonna be passionate about it,
Yeah.
right? It's gonna
Yeah.
result in an argument. I mean,
Yeah.
if you aren't seeing eye to eye and you're both
Hmm.
passionate about the subject, unless you're just not gonna talk about anything important, you know,
Right.
and
Right.
yeah, I mean, you have to be willing to have those uncomfortable conversations for the betterment of the relationship.
Right. In fact, it's one of the I don't have a long list of things I have to have, but that's one of the things I have to have. I have to have someone that is willing to address conflict, that is willing to hold me accountable, that's willing to say, "Hey, listen, you're out of line right now." Now, I'm not a hard person to work with. I'm not a hard person to live with. I err on the side, I mean, there might be some things, but I err on the side of being too accommodating. Um, but I will never, ever again in my life not have a voice. Like I
Mm,
did that, didn't serve me well. Because if you're not speaking up for yourself, things absolutely will fall apart.
mm,
And because I'm going to have a voice, I also need someone who will speak their truth and hold me accountable if I am not being sensitive, if I am overlooking things, or if I simply misunderstand. When people say, I never fought with my partner, I go, okay, somebody didn't have a voice.
yeah.
Two
So
adults don't always see eye to eye.
so let me ask you a question that I don't know the answer to because I don't really know your ex at all,
Mhm.
but you not having a voice, how much of that was his fault versus how much of that was your fault?
Oh, that's my fault.
Okay.
Oh, that's
And
my
why
fault.
why why would you
Absolutely.
why would you say that?
Because I am the only person that could change it,
Mm.
and it gives me complete power in my future.
So let me ask you, do you think and this is something that I think is something that I've really struggled with over time in these things because I tend to be a very much a kind of an extreme accountability guy,
Mhm.
where like everything is your fault and introspection first. And that serves you well in a lot of ways, but a lot of ways it doesn't. But then there's also all these external influences that color the way you make your decisions.
Mhm.
And then there's people who are on that extreme end, which is unhealthy. And I think extreme accountability can be unhealthy as well.
Mhm.
So with that, do you think that you say it was your fault because you're the one who had the power to change it, but
Mhm.
do you think that it was precipitated by your ex kind of pushing you to not have a voice, or was it just a situation where you like you said earlier, where you just didn't feel like that you felt like it wasn't, appropriate for you to ask for your needs?
I think it was a combination of both, and I think that as time passed, I think it was a gradual thing, and, one of the big problems that I see is that as we continue to acquiesce to someone else's needs above our own, then it becomes a pattern, and if you're going to change that pattern, it is gonna rock the boat, and that is gonna make people unhappy, and that's
Worse if
another
you do.
reason that it's right? That's another reason it's super important to establish needs up front, to always have a voice. And I view it like putting on the oxygen mask on the plane. Like if I am not speaking up for myself, if I'm not asserting my needs and making sure my needs are met, if my needs aren't met, I have less to offer other people. So if
Fair.
I'm not getting my oxygen, other people are going to starve from what I could be giving them
Mm.
because my needs aren't met. And I have the ability and the power to make that happen.
Yeah, that's interesting. I agree with you, right? I think that the best way to make sure that you get yourself into a better relationship is introspection. But that being said, you can't discount the external factors that influenced and how that affected you and, getting out of those spaces that are creating the
Yeah.
issue or at
Which
least changing the environment in some way.
Right, which is why I think you assert your needs, and then
Mhm.
you watch and see. You watch and see, are they going to meet my needs?
Mm.
And if they don't, if they regularly show patterns of unhealthy behavior, if they regularly show discard for what you know what you need to know. And I don't trust people's words, I trust their actions.
Yeah,
People can say all sorts of things, show me.
yeah. So you know, as you're kind of you're not I know you're not a certified, like, life coach, but are you trying to coach people as you're going through this or
Well, it would seem I'm doing a lot of that. I'm not doing anything for a fee at this point. I don't know how I will navigate that, to be honest with you. I do feel here's what I can tell you. In the relationships that I have had several relationships where the things that I have shared with people that these are all new relationships of people that I've met within the last 10 since my divorce, right? The last 10
Mhm.
months. That the interactions that we've had, the things that I've shared have been absolutely pivotal for them.
Mm,
And several people that would say, this was life changing.
mm,
So I believe for whatever reason, because I wouldn't say that I don't consider myself to be the expertise that I have is on my own life experience. And what I can share is the things that have been pivotal and changed my life. So if
mm,
I identify in other people issues that I myself have resolved, I know that I can share my experience and help them to have the same results that I have had.
mm.
So in that sense, I'm an expert in the things that I have experienced.
Yeah, I don't think you need I don't know what I'd hate to say this, but I don't know what that life coach stuff really does. I mean, like, you know what I mean? I remember I had a buddy on here who is a life coach, and I interviewed him. He's a motivational speaker.
Mhm,
And I asked him, I'm like, "So you're a life coach and this, 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 this. What does that even mean?" And he goes,
mhm.
"Not much." And he said, he's like, "If you wanna coach, you just gotta coach.
Mhm.
Like, if you wanna speak, you just gotta speak, you know? Find experiences to speak." And
Yeah,
that's
and there
really
are
that's the
definitely
deal.
things that I believe and that I share. This was surprising to me, I didn't expect this. I just thought, "Oh, hey, this was cool for me, I'm gonna share about it." And it does, it resonates with people.
Yeah.
And, I mean, truth is universal, right? So if you have found something that is true and you are
Mhm.
passionate about it, you can use that truth to better other people's lives.
Oh,
So that's my goal.
yeah, and I tell people that all the time. I go, "People don't follow facts, they follow passion."
Mm,
You know? that, I remember a guy telling me one time, because I was a pro wrestler and all that. He was asking me one year about WrestleMania, and I go, "Oh, yeah, this year's gonna be great," and I, like, go off on all the stuff, and he's like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah," and I looked at him, I go, "You a wrestling fan?" And he goes, "No, I just really like listening to you talk about wrestling." Right? And
I love it.
and I was like, because that's what people are feed off of, is they feed off passion.
Yeah.
People like hearing people talk passionately about things, and
Yeah.
I wish more people were passionate about this stuff, more
Mhm.
passionate about believing in themselves. There's so much to, going back to this mindset, and I know we've been talking a long time, so we'll wrap up soon, but there's so much to this mindset concept that I don't think people understand. Like I spoke at an entrepreneurial class at my kids' school. They invited me to come talk to them about being a lawyer, being a podcaster, all these things that I've been successful at.
Mhm.
And they were just like, "Well, how did you get past, how did you, something like, how did you get past it, or how did you get past the fear that you're gonna fail?" And I just like, it just never really occurred to me that I would. You know, I just always
You don't allow it to be an option, period.
Yeah, I just go, I remember Rob Lowe saying on a podcast one time when they asked him how he became so successful, he's like, "Yeah, I just was like, well, somebody makes it. Why can't it be
Right?
me?"
Somebody's gonna do
Yeah,
exactly.
and so
Absolutely. Yeah.
so so yeah, like, my advice, like you talked about, you wanna start a podcast, and I think you're doing it, is I think we talked about it when you said you were gonna start one, and I was just like,
Mhm.
"You just gotta start one," you
Yeah.
know? Just
Yeah.
'Cause nobody's listening at the beginning anyway, right? Like, I mean, the first 3 or 4, the first 21 of them that you do, you're gonna be frustrated at how few people are listening. Maybe it'll
Mhm.
be different for you because you got 100 guys in your group or whatever, but for me, it
Guess
was
we'll
just
find
like,
out.
yeah, it was just me interviewing, like, a few friends, and it
Mhm.
just kind of devolved from, turned into something more from there, but yeah, like, I think a lot of if I had a message for your men's group, I my message would be, um, you know, just action, just
Yeah.
action.
Yeah.
You have to have a mindset that you're no longer going to accept mediocrity,
Yeah.
and, there's a lot of talented guys out there who just, for whatever reason, fear of failure or laziness or whatever, don't ever reach it. And it's nobody else's fault but theirs.
Yeah.
Uh, and that's the thing, and that's not a criticism, it's actually a feeling of love, because that when I say to men, and sometimes I think people are put off by it, when I say everything is your fault, it means you have the power to fix it.
And how incredible is that to know that you have the ability to determine the outcome of your own life? What could be more hopeful?
Absolutely. And that's the thing, you don't like, I don't think so we read in the scriptures that Jesus said, "If you had the faith of a mustard seed, you would look at that mountain and say, 'Move,' and it would move."
Mhm.
I don't I believe that you can extrapolate faith and mindset to be the exact same thing.
Mhm.
If you
Mhm.
just had the faith, like, I know we talked one time about the expectation test, which is something I've shared about before, where they took these mice and they separated them out, and they put 2 groups together, and they told one group, they said, "These mice have been trained to run this maze. This group has not. So you could expect that this group is going to run the maze faster than this group."
Mhm.
And then they did. They ran it twice as fast as the other ones, but none of them had been trained.
Wow.
So and the mice didn't believe they were trained. It was the
Uh-huh.
person running them, which means
Wow.
there's something in your brain, there's something that your mindset can do that affects the external world around you. So if you're sitting there at home in your house and saying, "Nobody loves me and I'm not worthy and no one's gonna give me a chance and they've got too many check boxes," you're right. You're
Yeah.
not gonna, or
Yeah.
if you say, "There are no leagues, I'm an attractive guy, I'm gonna go out there and I'm gonna find me a hottie who's gonna be, who's gonna be my forever soulmate, and you actually have the testicular fortitude to go out and talk to her, right? You're gonna get rejected sometimes, and sometimes you're gonna hit, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when you do, you're gonna find that person, but you gotta believe it, you
Yes,
know?
it's the expectation.
You
Yeah.
have to have the expectation, and that also what I think if more guys had that expectation and said, "I can do hard things. I can be better. I can
Mhm.
do better than what I'm doing," they immediately would.
Yes.
It
Yeah.
really I would say I tell people when they first start going to the gym, I'm like, "You are going to be shocked at the progress you make in the first 6 months." You will look back 6 months and you'll erase 5 years of garbage in 6 months if you really
Mm.
try. You know what I mean? Like, if you
Mhm.
really tried, you really gave it an effort and you changed your mindset and said, "I am gonna do this." 6 months, you'll be a completely different person. You wanna lose weight? You can lose 6 months, you could lose 50, 60 pounds in 6 months. No
Mhm.
problem if you're
Mhm.
dedicated. You know what I mean? You could change your job and get 3 promotions in 6 months if you really wanted to, you know?
Yeah.
But it's you have to believe.
Yeah.
And if you're one of these guys who goes, "Well, it's easy for you because 'cause you're a 6'7", guy with his hair and you're an attorney and all that stuff," you already lost. You
Yeah,
already
and
lost.
I'll tell you what, like, I look at how much my life has changed in the last 10 months. So, when I separated, so that's been, like, over a year and a half now, but when I separated, and I put up a reel about this with photos of myself, I was 80 pounds heavier.
Mm,
I didn't wear makeup, and I mean, I didn't have a voice.
mhm.
I did not live in a way that manifested that I loved myself. I loved myself enough to change my situation,
Sure.
but I decided that there was hope, and I've shared this analogy before. I felt like a door opened, and I realized that I had been living inside a shipping container. I didn't know I was in a shipping container. I had no idea how small my world was. But
Sure.
that door opened, and I could see the entire world. And I knew that I'm still stuck in the middle of the ocean. I got to get to shore.
Yeah.
But anything is possible.
Yeah.
And man, that hope is powerful, and I
Mhm.
breathed that in, and I'm running with it, and I'm
Yeah.
not gonna stop until I get where I intend to be, and then I'm
Yeah.
gonna keep going anyway.
And that's exactly what you need to do, and that's what people need to do, and listen, like, I get there's gonna be bad days, it's not linear. It's not like you're gonna sit there and it's gonna be all good days and all upward. It's peaks and valleys for sure. You just can't let the
Mhm.
valleys be too long. And the other thing is, man, like, you get around these guys who are just like, "I can't catch a break," and all that. That is infectious. Stay away from those people like the plague, because it's just if you don't, they're gonna infect you.
Mhm.
Like, negativity breeds negativity. You
Yeah, and
can't.
surround yourself with the people that accomplish what you want to accomplish.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, when you get in those modes, you gotta figure out a way to snap yourself out of it. And the other thing I would tell people is, if you get in that mode where you're like a "woe is me," it's okay, but give yourself a time limit. Don't
Right.
don't let it don't let it be, you're not gonna sit in it all day. If something bad happens,
Yeah.
I told my kid that one time. He got upset. He was really upset about something, and I just said, "All right, you have a right to be upset about this. So you're gonna be upset about this for 24 hours.
Yes,
One
exactly.
day you could be upset about it, and you're gonna think about it, you're gonna brood in it, you're gonna think about these things, and after 24 hours, you're gonna look and you're gonna say,
Then
"All
you're gonna
right,
move on.
gonna move on,
Yep.
and here's what I'm gonna do to improve. Here's what I
Yeah.
learned." And, I mean, again, these things are practice. They're not
Mhm.
gonna be perfect. You're not gonna do it every time. It's okay. You're gonna miss days at the gym. You're gonna eat like garbage sometimes. You're gonna ask a girl out and she's gonna reject you. It's gonna
Mhm.
happen. Those are the things that happen, but you can't let those things deter you,
Yeah,
you
it's
know?
trajectory.
It
Mhm.
is. Momentum. It's all
Mhm.
about momentum,
Yeah.
and, you're never standing still. You're either progressing or regressing every single time, every day.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
like I said, I mean, there's the will to go on and the will to win it really is mind over matter. It's there's no other way to put it, and, that's at least that's what it's been for me, I tell people all the time when I talk to them about success or when I've given my talks, I tell them, I go, I was never an A student, ever, in
Mhm.
any part of my schooling. I was never picked first for anything. I if I took an IQ test, it'd be at average at best. There's nothing particularly special about me. I just have become successful using traits that literally anyone has. Hard work, dedication, perseverance. That's it.
Yeah.
That's all it takes. You don't and I in fact, I told Edward on the podcast I did, before, I told him, "If I had a choice between the most talented person and the hardest working person, I would pick the hardest working person every
Every
single
time.
time, every
Yes.
single time."
Yeah.
And so yeah, you don't have to be the most talented, you don't have to be the best looking, you don't have to be the richest, you don't have to be those things. You just have to have some confidence and belief and have good values. And if you
Yeah.
have those things, you got your pick of the litter, especially in this
At this point in the
subsection.
game.
At
Yeah.
this subsection of people, like I said, you gotta change your mindset from women to have too many check boxes to women are it's real easy.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I have what women want. I
Mm,
mean, literally. Like,
yeah,
if men can believe the confidence is so attractive, and it's comforting.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, you just I think in the end, at least the women that I've spoken to about this, and I believe they're being candid with me, is they just want someone who is going to benefit them and not burden them.
Yeah,
That's really it.
be a plus, not a minus.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so when I hear some of these guys who are like, "Oh, I want some woman that, will grow with me or will drag me to the celestial kingdom." I'm like,
Uh,
nobody wants a project in their 40s, man.
yeah,
That time was in your 20s.
yeah,
People were betting on potential back in their teens and 20s. Now you need to have something, right? Now you need to show that you can, that you're not gonna be a chore.
yeah,
And so but, I believe that a lot of guys can be like can have that, and they just need to get the right mindset to get there. So,
yeah, I think absolutely, I believe that,
yeah,
absolutely,
yeah.
yeah.
So, okay, we're gonna wrap up, but I'm gonna ask you the 3 questions that I ask everybody. Are you ready for this?
Okay,
Okay. What would you say is your biggest success in life?
loving people.
That is so cute, I wanna throw up. Okay.
Ah.
you think it is,
It's the
just a
fact that I
loving people.
genuinely and sincerely love other people,
That's
other
yeah.
all other people.
Okay, so let me ask you though before we move on to the next question.
Mhm.
There's gotta be someone out there that you just are like, "I cannot stand that person." Do you
Oh,
not
so
have
here's the thing, you cannot like people and still love them.
oh, gosh. But isn't
So
there are you
there
telling me
and
there's
truly, like, I can count on one hand the number of people in my entire life that I did not like.
you don't have any level of pettiness where you're just like, "You know what? If that person slipped and broke their hip, I would have a good laugh."
Uh,
You're like, "No nothing like that?" Alright,
Even the
well,
people that I like the least, I want their happiness. Now again, I truly think that this is like a spiritual gift. I know that it's unusual. I don't it's not, but I mean, like, God made me like this to accomplish something.
yeah.
So,
I joke, uh, you know, I joke about that, but I hear what you're saying. Like, I don't think there's anybody out there legitimately that I revel in their,
and their pain.
in their pain or in happiness.
Yeah.
I
Yeah. Mm.
there are people out there that I try to not associate with as much as possible because they don't they do not enhance my life in any way.
Yeah,
Um, but
definitely.
But as far as hoping for someone's displeasure, I just don't have that, so
Yeah.
Now, what do you think is your biggest failure in life, and what did you learn from it? You're like, I don't love them enough. I should love them. I should love them more."
My biggest failure in life. Wow, that's a good question. Um, my biggest failure in life was not having a voice.
Mm,
It was not standing up for myself. Like, I can tell you so many horrible situations that I've been in
mm,
because I would not speak my mind. I would not assert myself and like verbalize my truth and my needs.
mm.
Many abusive situations
Do you
because I would
think
not do that.
Let me ask you this question, this just came to my mind.
Mhm.
Do you think that if you had established your voice early on in your marriage, that it would have ended differently?
It would have ended sooner.
Ah, okay, that's fair. That's fair. Because I wonder sometimes, like, let me give you an example of what I'm saying. So, like,
In most cases, it would have changed the course of things, yes, in most
mm,
cases. In my case, would that have been the situation? I don't know, but I will say this, I don't believe in regrets. I love and appreciate what I've learned and who it has made me, and I feel very comfortable with that.
interesting. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Huh. Yeah, that all makes sense. Let's get to the last question. This is the one that always trips everybody up. So, um, one day, way down the road, you're gonna pass away, and when you do, there'll be a funeral. And then when you have your funeral, there'll be someone who gives your eulogy. What is the one thing that you hope somebody says about you in your eulogy?
That I made them feel valued and seen.
Okay.
That
Well,
truly like, I know that sounds so cliche, but truly, like, it is such a like, I am so absolutely passionate about wanting people to recognize what they're worth. If people recognized what they're worth, they would meet their potential.
yeah,
They would do the things to be the husband or the wife or the executive or whatever it is. They would change the world.
potentially. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just thought something popped into my head. I thought I'd tell you, and that is that, so you seem to have a lot of people that come up to you and will say to you that you've, made their day, made their day better. And I've had that happen a few times myself, but not probably to the same degree that you have. So imagine if that many people have the courage to come and tell you that you've affected their lives, imagine how many more you probably are affecting that will never come and tell you, you know? So you're obviously doing good work and making, it's a noble effort. So you should keep doing it. Just keep on trying to. Yes, yes, you are relentless. And so that is a good thing. Yeah. Okay, so where can people find you if they wanna follow you and they wanna feel loved and they wanna feel all this hippy dippy crap that you're talking about?
So, Facebook and Instagram are your best bets. Stephanie Lynn Reay.
Okay, great. Are
Yeah.
you on TikTok?
I'm not on TikTok right now. I will have, YouTube. I've got some YouTube, but there will be more on YouTube. But yeah, Facebook and Instagram,
Are you
and I'll probably get to TikTok eventually.
your podcast, are you gonna put that on YouTube?
Yes, it will be on YouTube. I plan to have it on YouTube and Spotify, probably Apple as well.
Yeah, yeah, so yeah, I do all of those, and YouTube is essential. The reason I even bring it up is because TikTok and YouTube Shorts, those
Mm,
your reels are already primed for it. Like
okay.
you probably wouldn't have to do anything different than you're doing on Instagram or Facebook. You just would load it up to other places, and it's probably more apt to those than they are even Facebook and Instagram.
Good to know.
Instagram has been really big with Reels for a while, but they didn't become that until YouTube and TikTok. YouTube did Shorts and TikTok did whatever they
Mm,
call them.
okay.
So, so you should definitely get on those. I think that TikTok, if you get the right hashtags, your group would spread. Just don't do that ex-Mormon one, then that'll be that'll be a rough one.
Deal.
Yeah, so yeah, you should definitely get on those, and I look forward to seeing your
Great
podcast pop
advice.
up and hear all of your buddies on there.
Well,
Can't
thank you.
wait.
I'm excited,
Yeah.
and I anticipate that you'll be on it too. So
At some point, I'd love to come on. I'd love to come on
fabulous.
with some of the other guys that you've told me that want to come on. I would love to come on and have a spirited discussion with some of those folks.
Sounds awesome. I'd love
So,
it.
yeah, so anyway, well, anyone who's, made it the 2.5 hours, see, it flies, that's the thing. You do these things and, like, sometimes you're like, "Oh, it'll go like an hour," and then next thing you know, it's 2.5 hours, and you're like, "Holy crap, we talked for a long time." But for
Yeah,
those who've made it through the 2.5 hours, subscribe if you haven't, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, we got a bunch of cool stuff coming up. Still working on a few different things, irons in the fire, but we got a lot coming up. And Stephanie, it's cool to have you on. We'll have you back when you become, maybe when we get closer to the conference, we'll have you back. You can come on and promote it,
sounds great.
and
Sounds great.
we'll go from there. So,
All right.
all right, everyone. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.